Chapter 1776. It's you two. The moment he saw Yunjian and Shenbai walk over, Song Zilin quickly recognized the masked Yunjian and Shenbai. He happily waved at Yunjian and Shenbai.
For the matter 2 days ago, I thank you on behalf of Third Aunt.
Even Lang Yichen, who always had a cold appearance, nodded towards Yunjian. Yunjian also very indifferently nodded. Lang Yichen and the other two were all wearing masks and looked like young masters in their youth. Yichen, so you're here. At this time, a very loud voice sounded. Yunjian didn't need to look to know that the owner of this voice was Lin Xueqi, who had sprayed her and Shenbai with water spray at Meteor Academy. When she saw Yunjian and Shenbai, Lin Xueqi, who was also wearing a mask, immediately recognized Yunjian and Shenbai. It's you guys. Why are you guys here? This was Lin Xueqi's first reaction. When she saw Yunjian's perfect figure that made people jealous wrapped in this unremarkable black evening gown, Lin Xueqi's jealousy rose to the extreme. Just as Lin Xueqi fiercely glared at Yunjian, Yunjian's eyes suddenly lit up. She reached out and grabbed Shenbai, then turned a small circle to the left to dodge. A jet of bright red liquid sprayed in the air like a fountain and flew past where Yunjian and Shenbai were standing at a speed that was visible to everyone, heading straight for Lin Xueqi, who was standing right in front of the spot where Yunjian and Shenbai were standing just now. This was the trajectory of a glass of red wine, and this uncontrollable glass of red wine just happened to spill on Lin Xueqi's evening gown. Lin Xueqi's evening gown was white, but with this spill, one part of it instantly turned red. Seeing this, Lin Xueqi's face turned green. Not far away, the 16 or 17-year-old girl who purposely poured red wine on Yunjian saw that she poured it on the wrong person, but she didn't show any signs of remorse. What are you doing? Lin Xueqi exclaimed when she saw the girl pouring red wine on herself. Humph, the person I want to knock down isn't you. Who allowed you to stand there? The 16 or 17-year-old girl raised her head and glared at Lin Xueqi righteously. Now Lin Xueqi knew that she had become Yunjian's scapegoat. Why did you dodge just now? You did it on purpose, didn't you? Lin Xueqi roared at Yunjian again. Yunjian ignored her. Lin Xueqi was so angry that she glared angrily at the 16 or 17-year-old girl. She said fiercely, "Which aristocratic family are you from? Do you want to die? Who's the one courting death? I'm from the Lan clan, and my father is the patriarch of the Lan clan. Do you believe that I'll get my father to exterminate all of you?" The 16 or 17-year-old girl sneered at Lin Xueqi. This young girl's name is Lan Biqing. She is the young lady of the Lan family. The Lan family was the largest aristocratic family in the southern part of the Jiang province. Lin Xueqi's Lin family was nothing compared to the Lan clan. So when she heard Lan Biqing's words, Lin Xueqi was so scared that she shrank back. Seeing this, Lan Biqing turned to look at Yunjian smugly. She saw Yunjian's slim figure and thought that she was too beautiful. So she could not help but come over to fix her. She did not expect that she would be the wrong person. Lan Biqing thought that she would be able to see the fear on Yunjian's face after she revealed her identity. However, Lan Biqing was disappointed. Yunjian was not flustered at all. Instead, she crossed her arms and looked at her. Seeing this, Lan Biqing was furious. Just as Lan Biqing was about to do something to Yunjian, the scene suddenly quieted down. On the stage, the patriarch of the Lan clan, Lan Hongtian, who was also Lan Biqing's father, was standing there. He gestured for the crowd to quiet down. Lan Hongtian's power was overwhelming. So, the crowd immediately quieted down and did not dare to say a word. Then, Lan Hongtian's voice rang out. The reason I'm holding a masquerade party here today is to let everyone enjoy themselves. Chapter 1777. Whether it was the students of Meteor Academy or Dark Academy, they all knew about the existence of the Yulong continent and the legends of the sorcerer god and the lord god. Of course, these rumors were spread by the young masters and ladies of the aristocratic families. Of course, if the ordinary students who were studying in the academy heard these young ladies and young masters from aristocratic families spread the bizarre news that there was a Xiaoxian continent called Yulong continent in addition to Earth, it was another matter whether the ordinary students believed it or not. Because of this, when the head of the Lan family, Lan Hongtian, stood on the stage and spoke to everyone below, everyone pricked up their ears to listen. Especially those who did not know about the incident at Meteor Academy where Yunjian admitted that she was the sorcerer god. In the past, They had only heard of the legendary story of the sorcerer god of the Yulong continent. In their hearts, the sorcerer god was like an ordinary person seeing a god. It was an impossible figure. But at this moment, the head of the Lan family, Lan Hongtian, actually said in front of everyone that there was a young lady who claimed to be the sorcerer god of the sorcerer tribe of the Yulong continent. This was like standing on the street and suddenly someone claimed to be a fairy who came down from the heavens. It was unbelievable. But one thing that they had to admit was that what Lan Hongtian said just now really attracted the attention of everyone present. At this moment, all the students had the same thought. They wanted to see who the young lady who claimed to be the sorcerer god was. What did she look like? Was this matter true or not? After Lan Hongtian's voice fell, the dance hall was silent. Yun Jian's red arc was slightly raised. She did not stand out even though she was called out. This was a masquerade ball. Everyone around was wearing masks. Even if Yun Jian did not stand out, no one would recognize her. Humph, that is too much. The legendary sorcerer god is the existence of the Yulong continent. He is the object of our aristocratic family's admiration and admiration. How could such a powerful person appear here? It's obvious that the young lady who claimed to be the sorcerer god is another ghost impersonator. Seeing his father Lan Hongtian say this in front of so many people, Lan Biqing couldn't help but ridicule him. How could such a noble person like the sorcerer god appear on earth? This cough. Not necessarily. Song Zilin touched his nose and complained in a low voice. Why not? A person of such high status like the sorcerer god would never appear here. Lan Biqing's voice was loud and confident. Cough. Song Zilin glanced at him and rubbed his nose. He ignored Lan Biqing. Why couldn't he appear here? Isn't the sorcerer god standing right in front of you right now? And it's the person you didn't like just now. Song Zilin didn't say it out loud. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and looked at Lan Hongtian who was standing on the stage. Yun Jian had just shifted her gaze to Lan Hongtian who was standing on the stage when Lan Biqing's aggressive voice rang out again. What are you looking at? No matter how much you look, the sorcerer god that my father is talking about is definitely not you. The people around him were all looking at the stage. Lan Biqing pretended not to see anything. Yun Jian looked at that pair of eyes on the stage, but Lan Biqing was aggressive. She could imagine that Lan Biqing wanted to pour the red wine on Yun Jian because he was jealous of Yun Jian's beauty. She couldn't help but sigh. Yun Jian's beauty came from inside out. Even if she didn't show her face, she could make girls jealous to death just by looking at her back. Just as Lan Biqing's voice fell, a rather pleasant male voice rang out. Biqing, you're here? When I heard your voice, I knew it was you. When the male voice fell, Yun Jian glanced over. She saw two masked boys standing in front of her. One look and you could tell that their status wasn't low. The one who spoke was the shorter one on the right, and the one on the left didn't say anything. Beside the two boys stood a large group of young boys and girls. When Lan Biqing saw the boy on the left who didn't say anything, his eyes lit up. He shouted excitedly at the boy who didn't say anything. Brother Xiling, you're here. It took me a long time to find you. As he spoke, Lan Biqing glared at Yun Jian. He looked like he was showing off that he was very familiar with this boy. He pounced on the boy who was called Brother Xiling. Mo Xiling, the recognized genius of the Mo family. Chapter 1778. Lan Biqing said as he flew in front of Mo Xiling and grabbed her hand. Mo Xiling said softly. Different from Lang Yichen's indifference, Mo Xiling was the kind of person who ignored strangers and only cared about acquaintances. Biqing Mimi, I was the one who called you, but you called your brother Xiling's name. My heart hurts. Standing next to Mo Xiling, the boy who called for Lan Biqing just now put his hand over his heart and pretended to be heartbroken. The boy standing next to Mo Xiling was the young master of the Zhu family, named Zhu Bufan. Mo Xiling and Zhu Bufan were the school hunks of the Dark Noble Academy. Their status was about the same as Lang Yichen's group in the Meteor Noble Academy. But in comparison, Mo Xiling and Zhu Bufan's status was higher than Lang Yichen's group. Brother Bufan, don't make fun of me. Lan Biqing immediately acted like a little girl. The Lan family, Mo family, and Zhu family were the three leading families in the Dark Noble Academy. Their status was not something that the Shen family and Leng family could compare to. and Mo Xiling was the strongest in the younger generation among all the aristocratic families. She was also known as the strongest youth. The group of boys and girls standing next to him were all young masters and young ladies of the aristocratic families, who were on good terms with the Lan family, Mo family, and Zhu family. Therefore, they all greeted Lan Biqing. Lan Biqing felt that he had a lot of face in front of Yunjian and this group of people. He knew so many people and each one of them was an elite youth. And Yunjian and this group of people were a bit like country bumpkins entering the city. The more Lan Biqing thought about it, the prouder he became. He didn't know where this arrogance came from. Biqing Mimi, these people are? At this time, Zhu Bufan, who was smiling mischievously, locked his eyes on the group led by Yunjian and asked Lan Biqing. A group of people who think they are great, I don't know if they are from aristocratic families. Lan Biqing looked at Yunjian and the others with contempt. Especially when he looked at Yunjian, Lan Biqing glared at Yunjian. There was a strong sense of mockery in his words. In the eyes of Lan Biqing and the others, if they were not from the aristocratic families, then they were just ordinary people. It was like a person with a net worth of over 100 million seeing someone with a net worth of over 1 million. Sister Biqing, don't say that. Since we're all here, we're all friends. Zhu Bufan said. But pride was inevitable. Among all the people present, Lan Biqing, Mo Xiling and Zhu Bufan's Lan family, Mo family and Zhu family had the highest status. Even Lang Yichen's Lang family couldn't compare. Therefore, the pride in Zhu Bufan's words was understandable. At this time, Lan Hongtian, who had been waiting on the stage for a long time without a reply, smiled awkwardly. It seems that the girl who claims to be the sorcerer goddess doesn't want to go on stage now? Haha, this Lan understands. After the masquerade ball is over, this Lan will invite you up again. Lan Hongtian's words meant that he would not give up until he saw the girl who claimed to be the sorcerer goddess. These words were also directly telling Yunjian that if you don't show up today, don't even think about leaving. In this regard, Yunjian narrowed her eyes slightly. After Lan Hongtian's words fell, the masquerade ball began. The music in the ballroom suddenly sounded. This was a masquerade ball. Naturally, the boys invited the girls to dance with the music. At this time, Zhu Bufan, who looked delicate and pretty, walked in front of Yunjian. In front of everyone, he stretched out his hand to Yunjian and invited her. Miss, what's your name? Do you want to dance with me? Zhu Bufan and Mo Xiling were the school hunks of the Dark Noble Academy and were very popular. Even if they were wearing masks, many girls around could recognize them. Therefore, after Zhu Bufan's voice fell, the girls around immediately screamed like crazy. Wow, who's that girl? Why did Master Fan invite her to dance? God, I'm so envious. Master Fan is so handsome. If only I were that girl. Zhu Bufan was the young master of the Zhu family. He had a high status and good looks. However, just this status alone was enough to make the girls go crazy and scream. At this time, everyone was envious of Yunjian. Just when everyone thought that Yunjian would be so excited that she would immediately agree to Zhu Bufan's invitation, they saw Yunjian with her arms crossed in front of her chest. She had no intention of extending her hand at all. Yunjian stood in place and sneered at Zhu Bufan in front of everyone. Chapter 1779. Lan family, Mo family and Zhu family had the highest status. Mo family was second only to Lan family because of Mo Xiling. Although Zhu family's status was lower than Lan family and Mo family, Zhu family's status was ranked third among all the families in the entire ballroom. As the future heir of Zhu family, except for Mo Xiling, Zhu Bufan was undoubtedly the ideal partner in the hearts of many girls. But just now, Zhu Bufan was the ideal partner in the hearts of many girls. Among the younger generation, except for Mo Xiling, he was the most outstanding one. He was also the school hunk of the Dark Aristocrat Academy and had a high status. But Yunjian said that he was a waste whose strength was not as good as hers. Just the fact that Yunjian refused to dance with Zhu Bufan was enough to surprise everyone present. Who was Zhu Bufan? He was the school hunk of the Dark Aristocrat Academy. Other girls were rushing to have a relationship with Zhu Bufan, but this girl, she actually refused Zhu Bufan's invitation to dance. That was fine, but she actually said that Zhu Bufan was a waste? One had to know that in addition to the genius of the Mo family, Mo Xiling, the strongest among the younger generation was Zhu Bufan. What? Waste? Who are you talking about? Even Zhu Bufan himself was confused for a moment before he asked. Naturally, I'm talking about you. Yun Jian sneered. She stood in front of the long table where the pastries were placed. She lazily picked up a piece of osmanthus cake from the long table and threw it into the air. She opened her mouth and threw it into her mouth. Dancing at a masquerade ball was not as good as eating a few pieces of pastries. You actually said that Brother Bufan is a waste? I think you are the waste. Do you have any shame? How can there be such a shameless woman like you in this world? After listening to Yun Jian's words, Lan Biqing, who had not had a chance to scold Yun Jian, was stunned. In front of everyone, he stretched out his hand and shouted at Yun Jian. Too much. Even Mo Xiling, who had been silent, frowned and said such a sentence. Mo Xiling's words were like an imperial edict in the eyes of the girls. That's right. How can you be so excessive? Even young Master Ling said that you've gone too far. How could a girl like her be invited to tonight's masquerade ball? Get the hell out of here. We don't welcome you. Exactly. You're not welcome here. Get out of here. Immediately, the surrounding girls began to curse in unison. Mo Xiling had always regarded himself as aloof. Because of his outstanding strength, he hardly spoke, giving people a feeling of being aloof and difficult to get along with. How can a girl like you be so annoying? No one welcomes you. Hurry up and leave this place. Seeing this, Lan Biqing stood up and said a lot of things. She only said one sentence. How can you do this? Hearing this, Shenbai couldn't help but stand up for Yun Jian. Just as Shenbai finished speaking, Lan Biqing and the surrounding girls bombarded Shenbai with words. Who are you to her? Ha ha ha, you're still speaking up for her. Very impressive. You also get out of the ball with us. Among these girls, it was unknown who took the lead, but they all helped Lan Biqing to curse Shenbai, who spoke up for Yun Jian. Just as the cursing of the group of people present was extremely loud and unpleasant to listen to, Yun Jian slightly frowned. You guys are very noisy. Yun Jian's indifferent words came out of her mouth. Isn't that because you're too much? You actually said that our young master fan is a waste. You're the waste. You. When these girls heard this, they became even more enthusiastic. Just as this group of girls opened their mouths and chattered, Yun Jian, who had her hands on the pastry table, suddenly stretched out her hands and picked up more than 10 pieces of pastry on the table. In front of everyone, she directly threw the pastry out. These more than 10 pieces of pastry could be clearly seen in front of everyone's eyes, flying to more than 10 different places. In front of everyone, they blocked the mouths of more than 10 girls who were standing at different angles. All the voices stopped in an instant. Seeing this, Mo Xiling and Zhu Bufan, as well as everyone present, were all shocked. Chapter 1780. There were a few girls who scolded the loudest. When they were scolding Yun Jian, their mouths were the biggest. This small piece of pastry flew directly into the mouths of the girls who scolded the loudest. The girls couldn't control themselves and swallowed the unchewed pastry along with their saliva. These dozens of pieces of pastry successfully blocked the mouths of the girls who were scolding Yun Jian. Yun Jian's words just now made the girls whose mouths were blocked by Yun Jian terrified. It also made Mo Xiling, Zhu Bufan and Lan Biqing, who was blocked by the pastry, feel a chill down their spine. More than a dozen pieces of pastry were thrown together. And when throwing, one had to pay attention to the different frequency and speed of these girls' mouths. Only then could all the pastry be thrown into the mouths of these girls. Yun Jian's move just now made everyone present tremble. Moreover, she had merely narrowed her eyes and tossed out the pastries as if she was just throwing a few ordinary items. This successfully blocked the mouths of the girls. This throwing technique, how accurate must it be to be able to do this? And Yun Jian's last sentence completely shocked everyone present. What did she mean by, "You should be glad that I threw out a pastry and not a blade"? Thinking about it carefully, it really was like this. If Yun Jian had thrown a razor blade and not a pastry just now, she would have been fine. Then the girls who didn't spit out the pastry and swallowed it directly, wouldn't they be scared? So scared that their whole body was trembling in panic. All the girls present, including Lan Biqing, were trembling in fear at this moment. God, that speed just now. It's too scary. The bystanders who saw the scene just now were so scared that they screamed. Mo Xiling, who was known as the strongest teenager, also darkened her face in an instant. No one knew better than Mo Xiling how terrifying Yunjian's move was. Not to mention whether he could do it or not. Even if he had to throw 3 pieces of pastries into the mouths of 3 girls who were clicking their tongues at the same time, he would never be able to do it. Not to mention that Yunjian had thrown out more than a dozen pastries. Zhu Bufan was also given a fright. Lin Xueqi, who had always been against Yunjian, was so scared that she took 2 steps back. She swore in her heart that she would never dare to provoke Yunjian again. Lang Yichen and the other 2 were a little calmer, but they couldn't hide the shock in their hearts. You. Are you trying to be mysterious again? Don't think that your move just now is very powerful. I tell you, my brother Xiling can also do it. No, he's even better than you. Lan Biqing accidentally swallowed the pastry. When she finally regained her senses, she glared fiercely at Yunjian and said those words. Yunjian did not pay attention to what Lan Biqing said after that. She only smiled coldly. It was a mocking smile. After laughing, she reached out to pick up the pastry on the long table and put it in her mouth to chew gently. The venue of this masquerade party was not very good, but the pastries were not bad. Halfway through the masquerade party, the head of the Lan family, Lan Hongtian, stood on the stage again. He held a microphone in his hand, glanced at the audience, and smiled. Hey, the girl who claims to be the witch god, you still don't want to come out? Guess who I've brought to you? After that, a girl in black was brought to the stage. The girl was covered in blood and looked like she had been beaten many times. Chapter 1781. Lan Hongtian's words spread throughout the scene. Obviously, from the moment Lan Hongtian appeared, he held the microphone in his hand and asked everyone to gather with the girl who claimed to be the sorcerer goddess. He was confident that he could force Yunjian out. Of course, the premise was that the girl who claimed to be the sorcerer goddess was indeed the sorcerer goddess of Yulong continent. If she was not the sorcerer goddess of Yulong continent, even if Lan Hongtian brought out his trump card, this girl from the sorcerer tribe, it would be useless. Of course, if she was not the real sorcerer goddess of the sorcerer tribe, then even if the girl who claimed to be the sorcerer goddess appeared, it would be useless to Lan Hongtian. That's right, Lan Hongtian wanted to use this girl to threaten Yunjian. The premise of all this was that Yunjian was really the sorcerer goddess of the sorcerer tribe. When they saw him covered in blood, his black clothes had been whipped into tatters, and there were bloodstains all over his body, everyone present was in an uproar. This girl from the sorcerer tribe was very beautiful and looked very fresh. The legendary sorcerer tribe was basically all female and all of them were very fresh and beautiful. The legendary sorcerer tribe was a place where beauties were born. The girl on the stage revealed a pair of fair thighs. Although it covered her important parts, her beauty made everyone present take a deep breath. Yunjian's eyes sized up the girl on the stage. When she saw the girl's appearance, she raised her eyebrows slightly. There were so many girls in the sorcerer tribe. Naturally, she could not recognize all of them. However, as long as they were from the sorcerer tribe, the aura they exuded could not be wrong. This girl was indeed from the sorcerer tribe. Yunjian's nonchalant gaze turned sharp at once. Murderous intent appeared. That girl was caught. Why are you angry? This is not your problem. Do you still think of yourself as the sorcerer goddess of the sorcerer tribe? Lan Biqing, who saw the change in Yunjian's expression, said angrily. Mo Xiling, Zhu Bufan, and everyone present looked at Yunjian. However, in the next second, Yunjian did not even look at Lan Biqing and walked towards the stage. She really thinks of herself as the sorcerer god. Let's see how long she can be stubborn for. Lan Biqing had yet to react. Could she be the girl who claimed to be the sorcerer goddess? Seeing Yunjian walk to the front of the stage and jump onto it with ease, Zhu Bufan suddenly came to a realization and shouted loudly. This time, the attention of Lan Biqing, Mo Xiling, Lin Xueqi, Xin Bai and Lang Yichen, as well as everyone present, was drawn over. However, Yunjian, who had jumped onto the stage, met the eyes of the Lan family's patriarch, Lan Hongtian, in front of everyone's dumbfounded gazes, and said, "For thousands of years, you are the first person who dared to capture a member of the shaman tribe right under my nose. Yun Jian's words caused an uproar. She. She really is the girl who called herself the sorcerer goddess. You are the sorcerer goddess of Yulong mainland. Lan Hongtian looked at Yun Jian and was shocked by her aura. This aura. This battle formation. It can't be wrong. She must really be the sorcerer goddess of Yulong mainland. There really is a Yulong mainland in this world. There really is a sorcerer goddess. Lan Hongtian laughed a few times and then suppressed the girl from the shaman tribe. He placed the knife on the girl's neck and ordered Yun Jian. Listen up. You must listen to my orders in the future. Otherwise I will kill her. This threat made Yun Jian's lips curl into a beautiful red arc. In front of everyone, Yun Jian walked toward Lan Hongtian and the suppressed girl from the shaman tribe without fear. She said something coldly that made everyone present go crazy. Since you know that I am the sorcerer goddess of the shaman tribe, then you should know my principles. What principles? Lan Hongtian heard this and took a deep breath and asked. Yun Jian, who was standing on the stage, flipped her right hand in front of everyone and a knife that made all the aristocratic families stand up straight appeared. God-vanquishing blade. That knife was the God-vanquishing knife. The God-vanquishing knife had only appeared in the books recorded by their ancestors. It was said that even the people of Yulong mainland regarded this knife as a legendary weapon. Before the aristocratic families could react, Yun Jian, who was holding the butterfly knife of the God-vanquishing knife, slowly walked toward Lan Hongtian with the knife in her hand. Her smile was so strange that it made everyone present shudder. Listen up. I am the daughter of the shaman tribe. The principles of the sorcerer goddess are. Chapter 1782. At this moment, Yun Jian seemed to be a different person compared to the original Yun Jian. The Yun Jian who first appeared in front of Lan Biqing, Mo Xiling, Zhu Bufan and the others was wearing a mask from the masquerade party. She gave people a very mysterious feeling, but just looking at her figure gave people a feeling of extreme beauty. At that time, Yun Jian really looked like a little girl who came to attend the banquet, pure and moving. But throwing away that pure aura, at this moment, Yun Jian gave people the feeling that she was the king of the jungle. Although she was wearing a mask, her words just now coupled with her flamboyant figure at this moment. At this moment, Yun Jian was like a god who controlled killing. Seeing her like this, Lan Biqing and the group of girls who were against her at the beginning were stunned, and it made Mo Xiling and Zhu Bufan's hearts beat violently. So domineering. So arrogant. So arrogant. Yun Jian's arrogant look just now, not to mention the most outstanding genius of the younger generation, Mo Xiling, would not dare to do so. Mo Xiling was afraid that she did not even have the courage to look straight into the eyes of the Lan family's head, Lan Hongtian. Therefore, Mo Xiling and Zhu Bufan, who wanted to tease Yun Jian at the beginning, did not look particularly good. Sorcerer god. Sorcerer god. Sorcerer god. At this moment, the Shen family who was standing not far away, joined forces with the Leng family and all the other families who fought against the Lan family and shouted at Yun Jian on the stage. Standing on the stage, Yun Jian heard the shouts and naturally knew that these shouts must have been organized by Xueqi. If they did not fight against the Lan family and this group of families who colluded with each other, when would they? What's more, they had the support of the sorcerer god. Xueqi was not stupid and naturally understood this point. Yun Jian did not respond. At this moment, her eyes were red as she walked in the direction of Lan Hongtian who was suppressing the witch tribe girl. When the people of Yulong continent came to Earth, they had no spiritual power, but if they used it forcibly, they could still use spiritual power, but they had to pay a price. However, Yun Jian could tell that the young witch girl, who was covered in wounds from the beatings, had no spiritual energy left in her body. He had heard from Xueqi that the Lan family had gathered together because they wanted to rush back to the Yulong continent one day and attempt to rule the Yulong continent. Therefore, since a few hundred years ago, the Lan family had been researching a potion that could make the people of the Yulong continent lose their spiritual power. And now, the experiment was a success. Needless to say, this young lady from the sorcerer tribe had been drugged with this potion. Hence, even if she was in the Yulong continent, she would not be able to use her spiritual energy. Lan Hongtian captured the young girl from the witch tribe. This action made Yun Jian very angry. What angered Yun Jian even more was that Lan Hongtian had not only captured the young women from the sorcerer tribe, he had also tortured and beaten the young women from the sorcerer tribe. With the god-vanquishing blade in her hand, Yun Jian walked towards Lan Hong Tian without stopping. Seeing the god-vanquishing blade in Yun Jian's hand, Lan Hong Tian, who was holding the blade against the young woman from the sorcerer tribe's neck, was frightened. He threw away the blade and stepped on the young woman from the sorcerer tribe mercilessly. He then fished out a bottle of potion from his body. Since you won't listen to me, I won't hold back either. You should have heard of this potion. As long as I sprinkle it on the people of the Yulong continent, you will immediately lose your spiritual energy. So what if you are the sorcerer god? You must listen to me. Lan Hong Tian took out his trump card. He looked at Yun Jian and shouted. The crowd below the stage, including the people from the Shen family who were shouting just now, felt their hearts tighten. That potion. It would make the sorcerer god lose his spiritual energy. Could it be that the sorcerer god was being threatened just like that? Just as they were thinking about it, they saw Yun Jian laugh coldly. She did not stop but continued to walk towards Lan Hong Tian. Looks like you are stubborn. I won't hold back then. After Lan Hong Tian finished speaking, he opened the cap of the potion and sprinkled it on Yun Jian's body. Oh no, quickly dodge. Xin Wei was so frightened that his expression changed drastically. Everyone below the stage was stunned. Just as the potion was sprinkled on Yun Jian's body, they saw Yun Jian's figure flash. Her speed suddenly became as fast as thunder. In a breath's time, she appeared in front of Lan Hong Tian from 5 meters away. The god-vanquishing blade stabbed into Lan Hong Tian's heart in front of everyone at a speed that Lan Hong Tian did not even have time to react. In the next second, Yun Jian pulled out her blade and kicked Lan Hong Tian off the stage before he could react. Just as the crowd was so frightened that their backs straightened, Yun Jian's cold voice rang out a second before Lan Hong Tian closed his eyes and stopped breathing. Chapter 1783. In the eyes of these aristocratic families, other than the sorcerer goddess of Yulong mainland, the internationally renowned slaying god was also a person that these aristocratic families and the people present had heard of. Yun Jian's last sentence, Kosha mercenaries, slaying god, made it clear to those who did not know who slaying god was. Who else could slaying god of Kosha mercenaries be? Other than slaying god, who was ranked first on the international secret agent ranking, who else belonged to Kosha mercenaries? Many of the students present might not know who slaying god of Kosha mercenaries was, but these aristocratic families' children had been educated by their families since young. They were very familiar with slaying god of Kosha mercenaries. This was a terrifying existence that they did not dare to provoke. Therefore, when Yun Jian finished speaking, everyone present, especially Lan Biqing, Mo Shiling, and Zhu Bufan, including the group of girls who had mocked and ridiculed Yun Jian and were aggressive toward Yun Jian like a machine gun. In the end, Yun Jian sealed their mouths with pastries. Everyone's pupils contracted, their faces were tense, and their mouths were agape. The moment Lan Hong Tian closed his eyes, he heard Yun Jian's voice. It was too late for regrets. The potion that the Lan family had planned for hundreds of years and spent so much manpower and energy to develop was ineffective against the sorcerer goddess. And she was slaying god, ranked first on the secret agent ranking in the country. Even if Yun Jian had lost her spiritual power, with the Lan family's power, forget about capturing Yun Jian, the entire Lan family would have been annihilated. And now, the Lan family was done for. Completely done for. He was also done for. The Lan family's years of hard work were all gone after he had wronged Yun Jian. In that instant, countless emotions flashed through everyone's mind. 3 seconds later, Lan Hong Tian was kicked off the stage. Fresh blood spurted out from his heart and drew an arc in the air. Lan Hong Tian was brutally smashed to the ground and died a tragic death. For those who were stabbed by the god-vanquishing blade, even the gods of deity continent would have their souls destroyed, let alone humans. Lan Hong Tian's soul was destroyed. He could not escape. The families who were in cahoots with Lan Hong Tian shrank back when they saw Lan Hong Tian being stabbed to death by Yun Jian and kicked off the stage. Even the masters of the Mo family and Zhu family, who were in cahoots with the Lan family, did not dare to step forward. The Lan family's patriarch, Lan Hong Tian, had committed countless atrocities. In order to develop that bottle of medicine, he had captured thousands of innocent people and killed them for experiments. Since they could not capture people from the Yulong continent, they could only capture ordinary people from Earth. A bottle of potion was very corrosive to ordinary people. As long as a failed product was sprinkled on an ordinary person, that person would be corroded alive and die.
Therefore, the God vanquish God experiment was a person.
The Lan family's master was Slin. God vanquish Lan Shenwei had long been annoyed by Lan Hongtian's actions of harming the innocent. However, Lan Hongtian and his group were powerful. He could not do anything about them. Now that he saw Yun Jian killing such a heinous person in the form of his soul being destroyed, Shenwei immediately took the lead to call out to Yun Jian, "Sorcerer Goddess! Sorcerer Goddess!" When Lan Biqing realized that his father had been killed by Yun Jian and was about to rush over, the families who were in cahoots with the Lan family had already retreated with their people. The Mo family and Zhu family retreated quickly when they saw this. However, before they could leave, Lan Su, Gunyanji, and Qingyu came from afar with a large group of people and surrounded the place. Although the Mo family and Zhu family were afraid of Yun Jian, they did not recognize Lan Su and the other two when they saw Lan Su and the other two surrounding the place. Therefore, the Mo family's master shouted at Lan Su, trying to scare Lan Su away from his voice. "Who are you?" Just as the Mo family's master finished speaking, Lan Su's voice, which was no less loud than the Mo family's master's, rang out. Chapter 1784. Lan Su? You mean Lan Su, the first guardian of the sorcerer goddess in our ancestors' records? The daughter of the sorcerer tribe sorcerer goddess who is second only to the sorcerer goddess in Yulong mainland? Just as Lan Su finished speaking, Master Mo and Master Zhu who were standing beside Master Mo exclaimed in shock. The sorcerer goddess was also a person who was recorded in great detail in the family records of these noble families' ancestors. When the sorcerer goddess was mentioned, Lan Su, as the first guardian of the sorcerer goddess, was also emphasized. It was true that the sorcerer goddess was the pinnacle of existence in Yulong mainland. As the first guardian of the sorcerer goddess, Lan Su's position was also top-notch in Yulong mainland. What? Our ancestors migrated from Yulong mainland hundreds and thousands of years ago, and we've never seen anyone from Yulong mainland until now. Why are there so many of them here now? And they're all the legendary figures in Yulong mainland. The Mo family head, who had been shouting at Lan Su and trying to use his loud voice to suppress Lan Su, narrowed his eyes at this moment. He suddenly became timid and didn't even dare to speak loudly. Lan Su, Gunyanji, and Qingyu walked toward Yun Jian after getting people to surround the scene. Then, under everyone's watchful eyes, Lan Su and Gunyanji bowed to Yun Jian the way Yulong mainland greeted the sorcerer goddess. Sorcerer goddess. Yun Jian raised a brow. Since she had been wearing a mask since the beginning, everyone could only see her slim and well-proportioned figure but not her face. Yun Jian had openly exposed her identity today because she was wearing a mask. With so many people present, it was impossible for two students from aristocratic schools to use a 3-hour amnesia serum. The cost was high. If everyone were to use it, Qingyu would probably chase her all over the streets. Clean up the scene. Take care of all the noble families who have harmed people with the Lan family as the leader. Yulong mainland doesn't need these noble families who have harmed people. Yun Jian's voice, which was as beautiful as the sounds of nature, rang out and spread to every corner of the place. Hearing this, all the people who were in cahoots with the Lan family were paralyzed. It's over. Not only was the Lan family finished, all the other aristocratic families were finished as well. Yes. Lan Su, Gunyanji, and Qingyu acknowledged the order and nodded at Yun Jian. Yun Jian handed the task of dealing with these aristocratic families to Lan Su and the other two. At that moment, Yun Jian turned her head slightly and looked sideways at the girl from the shaman tribe. She moved her red lips and said to her, "Which elder of the shaman tribe are you a descendant of?" Name. Most of the girls in the sorcerer tribe were descendants of the sorcerer tribe elders. I am Elder Wu Qing's granddaughter. My name is Wu Lin. The young witch girl, who was covered in wounds, bowed to Yun Jian and said, "All right, you can return to Yulong mainland now," Yun Jian said to Wu Lin. "Thank you, sorcerer goddess. I was accidentally brought to Earth. I didn't expect to be caught by them. Not only did they beat me, they even forced me to tell them the way to Yulong mainland. I didn't even tell them." Wu Lin looked up at Yun Jian and said proudly. She was proud because she did not betray the shaman tribe out of fear. She did not betray the sorcerer goddess either. After sending Wu Lin off, the ball was almost over. Yun Jian did not remove her mask halfway through. Other than Lin Xueqi, Lang Chen, and a few others, no one knew Yun Jian. At that moment, Yun Jian stood in the aisle and looked into Xin Wei's eyes. The person who harmed Xin Wei's son, Shen Shaoqing, was the Lan family's master. Shen Wei asked Yun Jian to protect his daughter, Shen Bai, because he was afraid that the Lan family would turn against his daughter. Now that the Lan family was destroyed, Yun Jian did not need to promise to protect Shen Bai's daughter for another month. Shen Wei looked into Yun Jian's eyes. He thanked her first before speaking. Chapter 1785. Of course, recovering all his memories as a supreme magus was not something that could be done within a short period of time. Shen Wei was just an ordinary person. It was already impressive that he could make such a potion. Yun Jian was not afraid that Shen Wei was lying to her. He knew Yun Jian's identity long ago. Yun Jian could tell a liar from their gaze. I'll send someone to deliver the potion to you in 2 days. It'll take about a month or two because I still have to make the potion. Shen Wei said. Yun Jian nodded. As long as she could recover her memories, time was not a problem. After everything was settled, Yun Jian returned to Longmen City. Originally, he had expected to stay in southern city of the Jiang province for a month. Unexpectedly, he had only stayed in southern city of the Jiang province for 3 to 4 days. After the middle of October, the weather was turning colder. People who wore thin short-sleeved shirts and shorts in summer were slowly putting on their jackets and long pants. At night, the weather turned cold and gloomy. Tonight, in particular, the temperature had dropped to the point that it was no different from winter. Phew, it's so cold. Little Strawberry, don't go back. Why do you have to go back to school? Why don't you stay with us? Qingyu rubbed her hands by the heater and told Luo Berry. Qingyu had an air conditioner at home, but it was broken in the past 2 days. The weather was neither too hot nor too cold and the temperature was just right, so Qingyu was too lazy to fix it. She did not expect the temperature to drop to single digits today. The weather after the middle of October was getting colder. The temperature difference between summer and winter in Zhe province, the southernmost part of the province, was already huge. With the temperature dropping so much today, Qingyu did not even bother to stretch her hand, let alone fix the air conditioner. Sister Jian, right? I told you to let Little Strawberry stay with us for a few more days. Why do you have to go back to school so early? Can I bring you guys to play video games, race cars and play mahjong? Is it fun? Seeing that Luo Berry did not answer, Qingyu turned to ask Yun Jian, who was slouching on the sofa with her arms resting on the back and her eyes closed. Yun Jian replied softly without opening her eyes. After Lang Mei was taken away by Di Lin, Qingyu's house was finally quiet for a while. However, Lan Su came back not long after and Qingyu's house was noisy again. However, Lan Su had been taken away by Adam ever since he returned from the southern part of the province. With that, Qingyu and Gu Niangu were left alone in Qingyu's house. Of course, the last sentence was just her imagination because Luo Berry had not left yet. However, Luo Berry was planning to go home today, so Qingyu and Gu Nianji would be alone in each other's arms for the rest of the day. I think I should go home, Luo Berry said after a moment of silence. She hadn't seen Mo Sen here for several days. Maybe he didn't want to see her? She was such an idiot. Last time, she was almost defiled by her cousin, and he happened to see it. Little Strawberry, why are you so stubborn? You still want to go back to school to be abused. Don't go. Stay, sister will take care of you. Qingyu curled up into a ball from the cold, but she did not forget to ask Luo Berry to stay. It was then that the door to Qingyu's house opened. It was Saturday today, so Yun Jian saw her own brother, Yun Yi, walking in when she looked up. Yun Yi saw Qingyu curled up into a ball by the stove when he walked in, but he was too lazy to help her. Instead, he went back to his bedroom to grab a blanket to cover her. Yun Yi knew Qingyu's habits after dating her for so long. Sometimes, when Qingyu was really frozen into a ball, she was too lazy to walk back to her bedroom to grab a blanket to cover herself. Hence, Yun Yi hurried to Qingyu's bedroom and covered her with her blanket, mumbling incessantly, "What are you talking about? Why didn't you walk back to your bedroom to get a blanket when you're so cold?" Chapter 1786. Qing Yu and her brother, Yun Yi, were living like an old married couple. Even the way they spoke was similar. Gu Nianji was already used to the way the two of them treated her. She hugged her knees and rolled her eyes. Show off to your heart's content. Luo Berry, who was sitting next to them, could not help having some weird thoughts. If she and Mo Sen could be as loving as Qing Yu and Yun Yi one day. No. What was she thinking? He was Mo Sen, one of the 4 leaders of an Hun group. They were not on the same side. She was not worthy of him at all. She had to erase such thoughts. Moreover, Luo Berry was planning to leave today. She was leaving Mo Sen's world completely. She had never loved before. It was her first time falling in love with a boy. Luo Berry thought that as long as she left Mo Sen's world completely and could never see him again, she would not think about him anymore. Both Gu Nianji and Luo Mei had their own thoughts as they watched Qing Yu and Yun Yi being lovey-dovey. Yun Jian, on the other hand, was used to it. With a small smile, she picked up the TV remote control in front of her and turned it on. As soon as the TV was turned on, the volume was turned up. A loud voice came through as soon as the TV was turned on. Grandpa! We must save Grandpa. The voice of the super-large anime, Calabash Brothers, rang out. Yun Jian coughed dryly when she heard that. It was obviously the video that Qing Yu was playing. It popped out as soon as the TV was turned on. Yun Jian changed the channel and watched the TV with her arms crossed in front of her chest. Luo Berry was waiting for her family's car to pick her up. Yun Jian did not ask her to stay. Qing Yu was still puzzled. She did not know that Yun Jian had sent a message to someone the moment Luo Berry decided to leave and never come back. If Qing Yu knew that Yun Jian had done that, she would probably jump up and give Yun Jian 2 thumbs up and exclaim, "You're the best." About 15 minutes later. Honk honk honk. Below Qing Yu's suite, there was the sound of car horns honking. There were very few cars in this era. Hence, she knew that the Lowberry family had sent someone to pick her up. I have to go. Yun Jian, come to our house next time. Qing Yu, Gu Nianji, brother Yun Jian, all of you must come together. Luo Berry was absent-minded, so she did not feel the cold of the night. She stood up and bowed to Yun Jian and the others with a heavy heart, then walked out of the door. Hey, wait! Let us send you off if you want to leave. Qing Yu, who was too cold to move earlier, stood up to leave. It's okay, it's a little cold outside. See you next time. Luo Berry waved at them and ran out. When Luo Berry was almost downstairs, Yun Jian suddenly led the way to the corridor of the suite and looked down at Luo Berry. Before they walked to the corridor, Yun Jian said something sinister to Qing Yu and the rest. Come out and watch the show. As she spoke, she picked up an apple from the coffee table and munched on it while admiring what was happening downstairs. Qing Yu, Gu Nianji, and Yun Yi were confused, but they followed her out anyway. Just as Luo Berry opened the car door downstairs and was about to enter, a long hand grabbed her. Luo Berry was shocked. When she turned around and saw Mo Sen, who appeared out of nowhere, she almost fell to the ground. In the end, it was Mo Sen who grabbed her waist and pulled her into his embrace. When Luo Berry realized what was happening, she quickly squirmed out of his embrace. You're leaving? Mo Sen asked softly. Luo Berry lowered her head, not daring to look at him. She was afraid that she would be reluctant to leave if she looked at him. What confused Luo Berry was that she did not even tell him that she was leaving. How did he know? I'll leave first then. You're welcome to come to my house with Yun Jian and the rest next time. Luo Berry said to Mo Sen as she waved goodbye to Yun Jian and the rest. She tried her best to make it look like she was saying goodbye to a normal person. Luo Berry was about to turn around and get into the car when Mo Sen suddenly grabbed her and dragged her to Qing Yu's house without any explanation. He even found a very lame excuse to stop her from leaving. Chapter 1787. Luo Berry's heart skipped a beat, unable to react for a long time. Was the weather very cold these few days? The weather forecast said that tonight was the only night that was exceptionally cold. After today, it would be sunny for a long time. The weather forecast also said that the temperature difference in the past few days was rather large. Today was exceptionally cold and the temperature would soar from tomorrow onwards. She had to be careful to prevent heat stroke when she went out during the day, Standing by the corridor upstairs, Yunjian munched on her apple, enjoying the view as she watched what was happening downstairs. Qing Yu, Yun-yi and Gun Yanji's lips twitched as they almost spat out. "So you're such a person." They saw Imo-sen grabbing Luoberry's hand and taking 2 steps toward the staircase before turning to the car that came to fetch Luoberry home. He said something to the driver. Yunjian and the rest then saw the car driver start the engine and leave after hearing what Imo-sen said. Not long after, Imo-sen pulled Luoberry into Qing Yu's house. Yunjian and the rest had already returned to Qing Yu's house. Yunjian sat on the sofa and watched Luoberry being pulled back by Imo-senator. She smiled and said to Luoberry, "Welcome back." Luoberry was still unaware of the situation. She was stunned before replying to Yunjian. Luoberry turned to look at Imo-sen, satisfaction written all over her face. Although she did not know what was going on, did Imo-sen ask her to stay? He really did ask her to stay. While Luoberry's thoughts were still running wild, Yunjian had already looked down at her watch and got up to leave. Before she left, she turned to the rest and said, "I'll leave first. My friend is discharged. I'll go fetch her." With that, she strode out of Qing Yu's house. Yunjian did not know what happened to Qing Yu's house after that. She was on her way to Longmen City People's Hospital. Since she came back early, she could bring forward the matter of retrieving her mentor's letter that was delayed last time. However, Lan Su had been taken away by Adam recently. He said that he was going to bring Lan Su out for 2 days, so this matter was not urgent. The envelope would not run away either. Today was the day Chen Sini was discharged from the hospital after her accident. Although Chen Sini's brain had been closed, she could no longer do strenuous exercise like running for the rest of her life. This was the after effect. Today was the day that Chen Sini would be discharged from the hospital. She would be discharged at night. It was 7 o'clock in the evening. When Yunjian arrived at Longmen City People's Hospital, Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen were already standing at the entrance. Seeing Yunjian, Zhang Xiaofeng called Yunjian, "Master. Has Sini been discharged?" Yunjian nodded and asked. "She's in the car over there. Uncle is handling the discharge procedures for Sini. Sini asked us to wait for you here." Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen smiled as they led Yunjian to the car Chen Sini was in. Jian. When Chen Sini saw Yunjian, she almost jumped out of the car and pounced on Yunjian, but Zhang Xiaofeng held her down and prevented Chen Sini from doing so. "Don't move. You've just been discharged," Zhang Xiaofeng told Chen Sini as he stood beside Chen Sini. "Okay." Chen Sini stuck her tongue out at Zhang Xiaofeng and told Yunjian, "Jian, my dad's sending me to my grandpa's house to rest for a few days tomorrow. Do you want to come with me for 2 days?" Yunjian had not been going to school recently, so Chen Sini had invited her. It was Chen Sini who looked at her with anticipation. Yunjian smiled and nodded. "Sure. Haha, master, I can go back to school in peace with you accompanying her. I've fallen behind in my homework these few days. It's so frustrating. Chen Sini, you have to compensate me when you're better," Zhang Xiaofeng told Yunjian when he saw that Chen Sini was recovering well these few days. He then turned to Chen Sini and began to bicker with Chen Sini like he used to. "Got it. Idiot." Chen Sini stuck her tongue out at Zhang Xiaofeng and made a face. Chapter 1788. Jian, I need to pack my things tomorrow. We can only leave for my grandpa's house at 5 in the afternoon tomorrow. My chauffeur will send us there. You can come to my house to look for me then. After joking with Zhang Xiaofeng, Chen Sini turned to stick her tongue out at Yunjian. Yunjian nodded. Chen Sini's father arrived after a while. It was Yunjian who had saved Chen Sini. Chen Sini's father thanked Yunjian and invited Yunjian to his house to play for a while and have dinner. Yunjian rejected both offers. After sending Chen Sini off, Yunjian went home first. Qin Yiru must be at home now. Gu Junjian would be home for the next few days, so Qin Yiru had already set up dinner early. Just as she reached home, Yunjian's sensitive ears picked up a few gossipy murmurs beside her when she passed by a corner. It was not unusual for these gossipy women to gather at the intersection and murmur, but what caught Yunjian's attention was that the person they were murmuring about was Qin Yiru. Yunjian raised a brow and leaned against the corner of the wall without showing herself, listening to the gossipy women's murmurs from the dark. Hey, do you guys know Gu Junjian from our neighborhood? Didn't he marry a wife called Qin Yiru not long ago? Of course. When they got married, it caused a stir in Longmen City, no, the entire Zhe province. I heard that the red carpet was laid from the bride's house to the groom's house. I've talked to this Qin Yiru you guys are talking about. She's quite a nice person. What they said was just the gossipy women's murmurs. What came next was the main event. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes at that. Then, the gossipy women suddenly huddled together as if they were afraid that someone would overhear them. Their words spread like wildfire. Yun Jian's hearing was good, so she heard everything clearly. Gu Junjian is such a righteous man. He's usually very loving with his wife, Qin Yiru, but his mistress is indecent. Did you guys know that a woman came to Gu Junjian 2 days ago, saying that she was his university classmate? Now that she's divorced her husband, she's purely looking for Gu Junjian to catch up. As a woman, how can I not know what that woman is thinking? She was just thinking that Gu Junjian was rich now. Oh, he was rich, so she wanted to seduce him. You even pretended to be close to Qin Yiru and came here every day to freeload. What kind of woman to be a good woman to her to eat to? Qin Yiru of that family was kind and did not know what that woman was thinking. She's trying to seduce her husband. If this Gu Junjian was someone else, he would have probably gotten together with that woman right in front of her face. Luckily, Gu Junjian is a soldier and is an upright man. He's not seduced by that woman. But no one knows what a man is thinking. Who knows, maybe one day Gu Junjian will be seduced by that vixen. To be honest, if it were me, I would throw that woman out with a sweep of my hand. If she dares to appear in front of my man, I'll poke her *s. All these words came from the same gossipy woman. In the end, even the gossipy woman couldn't help but swear. Hidden in the dark, Yun Jian's eyes glinted sharply. She hadn't been home for a few days, so she didn't know what was going on at home. Sometimes, the gossipy woman's words weren't just gossip. After getting the gist of the situation, Yun Jian went home. The moment she opened the door, she was greeted by an unfamiliar woman instead of Qin Yiru. This woman had big breasts and a big butt, but she had a good figure. Although she was in her 40s and looked much uglier than Qin Yiru, she was younger than Qin Yiru. Chapter 1789. Gu Yunjian's family was rich now. Everyone in the neighborhood knew this. Back then, Gu Junjian and his wife, Qin Yiru, had a grand wedding. A red carpet had been laid out from the bride's house to the groom's house. More than 20 super sports cars had come to welcome the bride. Among them, there were even a few flagship limited edition sports cars. Just this alone was enough to make a group of neighbors envious to death. One had to know that the neighbors in Gu Yunjian's neighborhood were not poor. Gu Yunjian's house was a villa, and this was a villa forest. The neighbors in the neighborhood lived in villas, so naturally, they were not poor. However, compared to Gu Junjian and Qin Yiru's wedding, the neighbors in the neighborhood could not compare at all. The woman standing in front of Yun Jian was called Su Nina. The latter part of her name sounded like a foreigner's name. This was a name that Su Nina's parents gave her to show that she was an intellectual who had gone to university. Su Nina was Gu Yunjian's university classmate. As they lived in the same city, they usually interacted with each other, but not much. During their university days, Gu Junjian kept a low profile. Su Nina thought that Gu Yunjian's family was very poor. During their university days, Gu Junjian and Su Nina had outstanding looks. Therefore, it was inevitable that there would be some people who liked to play matchmaker or tease them to get together. Su Nina thought that Gu Yunjian's family was poor, so she refused to interact with Gu Junjian. Every time she accidentally bumped into Gu Junjian and was teased by the people around her, Su Nina would be filled with dissatisfaction. She would even fly into a rage. After that, the two of them never met again. Gu Junjian only heard that Su Nina later married a rich man. Her husband was a big boss in a city and was worth millions. In this era, millions were really rich. However, Su Nina was recently forced to get a divorce by her rich husband. She did not even get a single cent and was chased out with her son. However, in front of outsiders, Su Nina still had to pretend that she was very rich and did not care about her reputation. When Su Nina came back, she occasionally heard that Gu Yunjian's family had become very rich. Moreover, Gu Gu Junjian looked valiant and heroic, which was why Su Nina's heart was moved. Especially when she heard that when Gu Junjian and Qin Yiru got married, there were more than 20 super sports cars, including the red carpet from Qin Yiru's house to Gu Yunjian's house. Su Nina thought that Gu Junjian was the one who paid for all this. Gu Junjian had become so rich. Therefore, she quickly came to the door. When she saw Yunjian, Su Nina, who had just recovered from her confidence that she was younger than Qin Yiru, was instantly dealt another blow. However, Su Nina did not dare to be rude to Yunjian, so she could only pull a long face and speak nicely to Yunjian. The moment Yunjian entered, she saw Su Nina's hypocritical face. Su Nina's face was covered with thick makeup, and she was no different from a nightclub princess. The perfume on her body could be smelled from more than 10 meters away. Seeing this, Yunjian frowned. Seeing that Yunjian was ignoring her, Su Nina's face flashed with displeasure. However, she still spoke to Yunjian in a very intimate tone. "Little girl, you're so pretty. Tell me, what's your name? How old are you this year?" As she spoke, Su Nina turned sideways and waved at a 13 or 14-year-old boy. After the boy ran over, Su Nina blocked Yunjian at the door and did not let her in. It was as if she was the mistress of the house. Pulling the boy, Su Nina even introduced him to Yunjian intimately. "This is my son, Su Liao. Liolio, quickly greet your big sister." As she spoke, she even asked her son to call Yunjian big sister. Su Nina was the kind of person who came uninvited and treated other people's houses as her own. She was the master of the house. Yunjian did not even look at Su Nina. She stretched out her leg and kicked Su Nina away, walking straight into the house. Su Nina was kicked and almost lost her balance. She pulled the boy to the side and fell. After Su Nina steadied herself, she was furious. She was just about to complain to Gu Junjian. However, Yunjian's voice was already heard. She was speaking to Gu Junjian and Qin Yiru. Chapter 1790. The reason Su Nina dared to come here so brazenly was because she was certain that Gu Junjian and Qin Yiru would not dare chase her away. After all, Gu Junjian and Qin Yiru were honest people. Usually, when someone came to their house, they would treat them with courtesy as long as they were thin-skinned. Even if the other party was overboard, they would usually tolerate them as long as they did not cross the line. Gu Junjian and Qin Yiru were more honest people. So even when Gu Junjian and Qin Yiru did not like Su Nina coming to their house, they were too embarrassed to chase her away. Therefore, when Su Nina came to their house for meals every day, Qin Yiru was too embarrassed to say anything. What Su Nina did not expect was that Yunjian would say something like that when she wanted to use the same method to make Yunjian feel embarrassed to chase her away. Dog*T. She actually described her as Dog*T. Xiao Jian, she's a guest. You can't say that. Qin Yiru had long disliked Su Nina, but she still had to say that in front of outsiders. As she spoke, Qin Yiru gave Yunjian a look that said, "You're awesome. My child is young and speaks like that. Don't take it to heart," Qin Yiru quickly told Su Nina after she spoke. Su Nina, who wanted to criticize Yunjian, was at a loss for words. Since Qin Yiru had already said that, if she, Su Nina, were to say something else, would it not make her seem like she was being petty with a child? Su Nina's expression was very ugly. "You're not allowed to talk bad about my mom. You're a bad person." Su Nina's son, Su Liao, suddenly bellowed at Yunjian. His words gave the surrounding people a fright. "Liolio, don't spout nonsense. You have to treat your sister like your real sister. Don't spout nonsense like that next time." Su Nina covered Su Liao's mouth and told Su Liao solemnly. When the others heard her, they really thought that Su Nina was well-mannered. When they thought about it, asking Su Liao to treat Yunjian like his real sister. If they understood the meaning of her words deeper, it could be understood as, Su Nina was going to take Qin Yiru's place sooner or later. Asking Su Liao to call Yunjian sister? Su Liao listened to Su Nina very much. When Su Nina said that, Su Liao immediately shut his mouth. "By the way, Liolio, what did you learn in school today? Where did you learn the English taught by the teacher at the cram school?" Su Nina was angry at Yunjian, but she couldn't show it, so she wanted to use her son's extraordinary talent to provoke Yunjian. "Mom, the English taught by the teacher at the cram school is too slow. Even if a foreigner stands in front of me, I can still say a few words to him in daily language. Su Liao was still a junior high school student. He was not tall, but he still had a smug look on his face. He said proudly, "Wow, Liolio is amazing." Su Nina clapped her hands as she said that. Then she looked at Yunjian and looked at Yunjian with contempt. She pretended to be kind and said to Yunjian, "My Liolio isn't good at anything except English. I heard that your English is getting harder and harder in high school now that you're in high school. My Liolio has been learning English since he was young. If you don't understand, you can ask my Liolio." Yunjian sneered with confidence. Unexpectedly, just as Su Nina finished speaking, Yunjian's phone rang. When she raised her hand and saw the words displayed on the phone, Yunjian raised her eyebrows. New Cruise was now expanding overseas. There was no room for further development in the country. Zhang Jifan didn't understand foreign languages, so whenever he talked to foreigners about cooperation, Yunjian would take the call when she was free. Yunjian pressed the speakerphone and picked up the call. A fluent English voice came from the other end of the phone. "Miss Yunjian, how are you? I'm Apollo, the president of a Lida company." Chapter 1791. Yunjian hung up right after she said that. Although the conversation only lasted for a few seconds, this fluent English conversation was definitely not as simple as an everyday conversation. Su Nina and her son, Su Liao, were stunned by the scene. Su Nina, who had just boasted about her son, froze. What did she say just now? She said that she wanted Yunjian to learn English from her son, but what about Yunjian? She was able to talk to foreigners? Su Nina was thick-skinned. After a pause, she cast aside her awkward situation and turned to look at Qin Yiru. "Io, sister-in-law, your daughter even knows foreigners?" The sarcastic tone made Qin Yiru frown. "Xiao Jian knows some foreigners and keeps in touch with them." Qin Yiru smiled politely at Su Nina even though she did not like Su Nina. At that moment, a handsome figure came down from upstairs. Upon closer look, it was Gu Junjian. Yunjian narrowed her eyes. Her mother, Qin Yiru, married Gu Junjian because Gu Junjian was a righteous man who would not have any contact with shady women. It was not the first time Su Nina came to visit them. Based on what the gossipy women said, it had been a while. If it was just once or twice, Su Nina was probably here to catch up. As the hosts, Gu Junjian and Qin Yiru should not chase her away. However, it was not the first time Su Nina came to visit. No matter how dumb Gu Junjian was, he should be able to tell what was going on. If he did not do anything, Yunjian wondered if Qin Yiru marrying Gu Junjian was the right choice. "Xiao Jian, you're back? Let's go to the hotel for a feast tonight. Dad's treating a few college classmates to a gathering. Let's go together after a change of clothes." Gu Junjian told Yunjian with a grin as he straightened his suit around himself. Gu Junjian was treating a few university classmates to a gathering today, which was why Su Nina had stayed until so late and declared that she wanted to go with Gu Junjian and Qin Yiru. It was already past 7 in the evening. The reason Gu Junjian chose this time to treat his university classmates was that some of them had to work during the day and knocked off later at night. Looking at Gu Junjian, who had changed out of his military uniform, Yun saw Su Nina's eyes sparkling. Yunjian's gaze darkened as she went upstairs. If Gu Junjian did not handle this matter well, she would definitely leave with Qin Yiru. 3 minutes later, Yunjian had changed into a clean white long-sleeve shirt and a pair of blue skinny jeans. The loose shirt and skinny jeans accentuated her curves to the fullest. There was a sense of freshness about her. Yunjian was about to go downstairs when she heard Gu Junjian talking to Su Nina. Qin Yiru was listening by the side as well. However, she heard Gu Junjian say to Su Nina in a serious tone, "Su Nina, I, Gu Junjian, have always been upright. I've never betrayed anyone. I didn't say it 2 days ago because I wanted to save you some face. Today, I'll be frank with you in front of my wife. When we were in university, our classmates wanted to match us up, but I've never had any thoughts about you. Not in the past, not now, and not in the future. Please conduct yourself with dignity." Chapter 1792. Before Yunjian went downstairs, She heard Gu Junjian say those words to Su Nina in a very serious tone. Gu Junjian was a soldier. Of course, he wouldn't say something as rude as, "Get out of my house," to Su Nina. However, Gu Junjian wouldn't say anything to Su Nina just because he felt embarrassed and let Su Nina wander around in front of him. He couldn't do that. Qin Yiru was thin-skinned. She was born weak and knew her place. Gu Junjian naturally understood this. However, a man married a wife to pamper and protect her. Otherwise, what was the point of having a man like him? Since Su Nina was so shameless, then he, Gu Junjian, would be the bad guy. Yun Jian, who was standing on the stairs, suddenly smiled. Indeed, it was the right decision to let Qin Yiru be with Gu Junjian. Qin Yiru, who was standing downstairs, was so touched that she couldn't say anything after hearing Gu Junjian's words. On the other hand, Su Nina, who was standing opposite Qin Yiru and Gu Junjian, froze. She didn't expect that the person who exposed her was Gu Junjian. After her face froze for a while, Su Nina looked at Gu Junjian and continued to act pitiful. "Brother Junjian, what are you talking about? How many years have we known each other? After I divorced my ex-husband, I thought that I had no one to rely on when I came back. So, I thought about how you treated people in school back then. Now that you're a soldier, I really have nowhere to go with my child. My family is chasing me away and can't wait for me to leave. I don't have a job either. I know that I'm a little thick-skinned, but if it weren't for Brother Junjian and sister-in-law, I would have starved to death on the streets with my Liolio because we didn't have enough money to eat." After Su Nina heard Gu Junjian's words, she was angry with Qin Yiru. What was so good about this woman? She wasn't as young as herself. However, after hearing Gu Junjian's words, Su Nina wanted to rely on Gu Junjian even more. Not only was Gu Junjian rich, he wasn't a womanizer. TSK, if her ex-husband had even half of Gu Junjian's heart, he wouldn't have made her a nun. That bastard. Su Nina was implying that she and her son Su would die if Gu Junjian didn't let her and Qin Yiru. She and her son Su would die. Gu Junjian frowned. This woman was really difficult to deal with. Just as Gu Junjian was about to speak again, Yun Jian's voice came from upstairs, one step ahead of him. "Then you can starve to death on the streets for me to see. If you can die, I'll be kind enough to donate money to bury your body." This voice suddenly rang out. It was a stark contrast to Su Nina's soft and weak voice, who was wiping her tears as if Qin Yiru and Gu Junjian had bullied her. Sometimes, if someone was shameless to you, why should you give them face? If they could be shameless to you, then you should let them know what the highest level of shamelessness is. Yun Jian walked down the stairs with a cold expression. She enunciated each word and uttered words that made Su Nina's expression turn uglier. When Su Nina visited Gu Junjian's house for the first time, she saw Qin Yiru. After chatting with Qin Yiru for a while, she knew that Qin Yiru was a soft and weak person. For such a person, even if she stole her man right in front of her, she could only cry in the dark, right? Therefore, when she heard that Qin Yiru had a son and a daughter, Su Nina's first thought was, Qin Yiru's son and daughter were the children of that coward ex-husband, so they probably weren't that powerful. Therefore, her daughter and son must be like Qin Yiru, soft and weak. However, at this moment, Su Nina was wrong. Yun Jian was completely different from Qin Yiru. However, this wasn't the only thing Su Nina was wrong about. "Little girl, how can you say that? If you say that, I want to kill myself." Su Nina wanted to pretend to be pitiful again. She even looked left and right for a place where she could commit suicide. Su Nina thought that Yun Jian would rush up and tell her that she was wrong because she was afraid that she would commit suicide, or that Qin Yiru and Gu Junjian would stop her. However, Su Nina was wrong. Just as she was looking for a place to pretend that she was going to commit suicide, she saw Yun Jian walk up to Su Nina. Yun Jian flipped her hand and a butterfly knife appeared. She swung the butterfly knife twice and placed it directly on Su Nina's neck. Just as Su Nina was about to take a step back in shock, Yun Jian's cold voice rang out. Chapter 1793. Never in Su Nina's wildest dreams would she have imagined that Yun Jian carried a knife with her. Moreover, Yun Jian was dressed neatly from head to toe, no different from an ordinary person. How did she hide the butterfly knife on her? Judging by Yun Jian's swift hand speed just now, she was probably not an ordinary person. Since Su Nina was Gu Yunjian's university classmate, it was certain that Su Nina had studied in a military school in the past. Su Nina majored in military medicine. However, after she met her current ex-husband, she left with him and did not finish her studies. Having studied in a military school, Su Nina was well aware of how terrifying Yun Jian's technique was when she took the knife and held it against her neck. Even the male students who studied in the military academy couldn't compare to her. Hence, Su Nina's legs went weak from fear. Unable to control herself, she knelt before Yun Jian. When Su Nina's son, Su Liao, saw that his mother was held by Yun Jian with a knife, he did not rush over. Instead, he tore away his mother's hand that was holding Su Nina and ran a dozen meters to the side, hiding in a corner in fear. He dared not come forward to save his mother. Yun Jian smirked at what she saw. Gu Junjian kept quiet on purpose. It was only when Su Nina was pale and sweating that Gu Junjian held back his laughter and pretended to reprimand Yun Jian like an elder. All right, Xiao Jian, stop fooling around. I still have to treat a few university classmates to dinner later. It was obviously unrealistic to kill Su Nina. This was a lawful society after all. Gu Junjian could tell that Yun Jian was just scaring Su Nina. After all, a woman like Su Nina would probably come to his house again if he did not scare her. Hearing what Gu Junjian said, Yun Jian kept the butterfly knife with a smirk and kicked Su Nina's abdomen, sending Su Nina to the floor. For my dad's sake, I won't spend the money on a coffin. Yun Jian turned around nonchalantly, her long hair brushing Su Nina's face, stunning Su Nina for a long time. My daughter studies in the military school. She looks just like a boy. You've studied in the military school too, so you know that we soldiers have stronger hands. Haha, don't take it offense. Gu Junjian held Qin Yiru's hand and stood more than 10 meters away from Su Nina, showing no intention of going over to help Su Nina. Moreover, he was holding Qin Yiru's hand. If Qin Yiru did not go over to help Su Nina would be too embarrassed to say anything. The back and forth had infuriated Su Nina so much that she was about to have a heart attack. In spite of it, Su Nina was at a loss for words. Even her son, Su Liao, had stayed far away just now. 20 minutes later, the group walked from Gu Yunjian's house to Xianjia Hotel. It had been 3 to 4 years since Xianjia Hotel opened in Longmen City. It was well received and popular. That was because Xianjia Hotel's taste buds were obvious from its name. It was geared toward the masses and tasted similar to the local dishes cooked by ordinary people in Longmen City. Big bosses liked to set up their gatherings here as well. Since it was not particularly expensive, people would usually treat them to a meal. Those who were more extravagant would set up their gatherings here as well. Xianjia Hotel's decor was quite nice. Just as Yun Jian and Gu Junjian entered, they saw a group of men and women who were about the same age as Gu Junjian standing nearby. These men and women who were about the same age as Gu Junjian must be Gu Yunjian's university classmates. These middle-aged men and women who were about the same age as Gu Junjian were accompanied by young men and girls who were about the same age as Yun Jian. These people were obviously the children of Gu Yunjian's university classmates. For a large gathering like this, many parents would bring their children along. It was especially so in 1999 when the people's standard of living was still not high. Usually, when there was a gathering and someone was treating, the whole family would be present. After all, meat was only a few times a year back then. It was unlike now where they could eat meat whenever they wanted. Were their families unable to survive? They would starve to death. As Gu Junjian was the one who was treating today, a large group of people were waiting outside. When they saw Gu Junjian, the large group of people crowded around him. Our officer Gu is here. Haha. Junjian, it's been a few years since we last met. How have you been? A big-bellied man rubbed his beer belly and asked Gu Junjian courteously. Chapter 1794. When everyone was seated around the 2 tables, the dishes were served. Gu Junjian ordered 2 tables of dishes. Since his university classmates had invited their entire families, 1 table was definitely not enough to seat all of them. Of course, in this era, when there was a gathering, the entire family would be brought over for a free meal. Gu Junjian had already expected this, so the dining table was naturally prepared in advance. There were only a few seats left. After everyone sat down, Gu Junjian looked around.
Seeing that no one was present yet, he asked, "What's the matter?"
"Where's old Zhang? Why don't I see him?" Yun Jian was sitting next to Qin Yiru.
She could feel that many women and young girls were staring at her with burning eyes.
Old Zhang went to pick up his son from class. He'll be here in a while. The man with the beer belly who greeted Gu Junjian just now said to Gu Junjian. None of the middle-aged men, especially those who were big bosses, could escape the fate of having a beer belly. This was simply because their lives were too comfortable. Okay. Gu Junjian nodded. Usually, in such a gathering, the men would sit at one table and the women would sit at another. Today was no exception. Yun Jian was sitting with Qin Yiru. Su Nina was sitting opposite Yun Jian and Qin Yiru. "You're Officer Ji's wife?" Just when the atmosphere was a little awkward, a woman looked at Qin Yiru and asked.
Qin Yiru nodded very politely and answered.
"You and Officer Gu are both married twice, right? Officer Gu had many suitors in our university back then. You're lucky to be able to marry him twice." The woman looked at Qin Yiru and said with a smile. After saying this, the woman turned to look at Yun Jian and changed the topic to Yun Jian. "Then this must be the daughter of you and your ex-husband, right? You're pretty, but you look a little weak and gentle. Officer Gu is a soldier. You and your mother look weak and gentle. Haha. Officer Gu is protecting him."
This woman spoke in a strange tone.
It was unclear whether she was praising Yun Jian and Qin Yiru or secretly mocking them. But everyone around could hear one thing. Gu Junjian was indeed powerful, but Yun Jian and Qin Yiru were both skinny and weak.
Hearing the woman's words, Su Nina's body trembled.
She didn't know why she was trembling when she heard these words. The woman's name was Wang Defeng. Wang Defeng wasn't Gu Yunjian's university classmate. She was the wife of Gu Yunjian's university classmate. She had brought her daughter along for a free meal today. After Wang Defeng finished speaking, she picked up a huge piece of pork trotter and placed it in her daughter's bowl. Then, she instructed her daughter, who weighed at least 160 kilograms, "Don't worry about it. When eat meat. Eat more solid food. Your father is a soldier. You have to make your father proud." At least, she couldn't be like Yun Jian, who looked weak and gentle. Gu Yunjian's university classmates were all military students. The women were military doctors. Wang Defeng's husband was Gu Yunjian's university classmate. Naturally, he was also a soldier. However, Wang Defeng's husband wasn't as powerful as Gu Junjian. His military rank wasn't as high as Gu Yunjian's either. Therefore, Wang Defeng was envious. "Mom, I defeated a boy at the martial arts school last time." Zhu Wen looked at her mother, Wang Defeng, proudly. She bit the pork trotter and tore it apart. "Wow, our Wan is so powerful. You will inherit your father's skills in the future." When Wang Defeng heard this, she reached out and patted her daughter's 160 kilograms body. Then, she glanced at Yun Jian and Qin Yiru proudly. "I'm sorry we're late." At this moment, a man dressed in formal clothes walked in. There was another person standing next to him. It was obvious that he was the man's son. "You're not late at all. Bring your son to a seat. We've already eaten for a while." Gu Junjian laughed and waved at the man. The man's son glanced around lazily.
However, under everyone's gaze, it was as if he had suddenly seen an important person. He walked towards Yun Jian and shouted, "Grandmaster!
"Grandmaster, you're here." The man's son was none other than Zhang Xiaofeng's disciple, Zhang Jian. He was the silly fatty nicknamed Little Fatty. Chapter 1795. Zhang Xiaofeng had been hanging around Yun Jian recently, but Yun Jian had not seen Zhang Xiaofeng's disciple, Zhang Jian, for a long time. Zhang Jian was Zhang Xiaofeng's disciple and also the little fatty in Yun Jian's junior high class. He had a dispute with Zhang Xiaofeng in the beginning, but after being defeated by Zhang Xiaofeng, he turned around and became Zhang Xiaofeng's disciple. Zhang Jian had been studying in another province and it was rare for him to come back, so it had been a long time since he met Zhang Xiaofeng and Yun Jian. He came today reluctantly, intending to meet up with Yun Jian and Zhang Xiaofeng, but did not expect to be dragged to such a meal by his father. However, Zhang Jian did not expect to see his grandmaster here. Therefore, Zhang Jian's dissatisfaction was suddenly filled up, and he skipped to Yun Jian in front of everyone. What? What's going on? Even Zhang Jian's father was dumbfounded. Not to mention Wang Defeng, who had called Yun Jian weak. Wang Defeng was completely stunned. Dad, this is the person I told you about the last time, my grandmaster. My master's master. Team Monarch's slashing god. My grandmaster is amazing. Zhang Jian turned to introduce Yun Jian to his father in front of everyone. With this introduction, the surrounding people were shocked silly. Gu Yunjian's university classmates were all military graduates. The men were mostly soldiers while the women were military doctors. Team Monarch's slashing god. Most of them had heard of this title before. What? She's Team Monarch's slashing god. Jun Jian. Oh Jun Jian. Your daughter is Team Monarch's slashing god. This sounds too awesome. A man stood up from his seat in shock and looked at Yun Jian. He walked over and put his arm around Gu Yunjian's shoulder as he exclaimed. The cheers of Gu Junjian and the other university students could be heard all around. Seeing this, Wang Defeng, Zhu Wen, and the shameless Su Nina blinked. They weren't very surprised, but they were still shocked. Wang Defeng and Zhu Wen did not even know what Team Monarch was. This storm passed very quickly. During the meal, everyone ate with their own thoughts. Among them, Wang Defeng and Zhu Wen's expressions were particularly bad, and so was Su Nina. The new residence was located in Nanlin Road, a relatively remote area of Longmen City. Although there were shops around, the wide road was deserted. It was a stark contrast to the bustling city center where people came and went. After paying the bill, Gu Junjian suddenly received a phone call when he walked out of the Xinjia Hotel. Old Gu, you said you're treating at the new residence 2 days ago. Are you still at Nanlin Road now? An anxious voice came from the other end of the phone. I'm here, Gu Junjian replied. Quick! There's an international criminal fleeing from Longmen City in a grey Bugatti Veyron from Nanlin Road. He killed a wealthy businessman in Longmen City. You must stop him. The troops will arrive at the intersection in 10 minutes. You just have to stop him for 10 minutes. An anxious voice came from the other end. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. Just as the people around them shuddered in fear when they heard the voice, she saw a familiar figure not far away. It was Qing Yu. Qing Yu walked to Yun Jian in front of Wang Defeng, Zhu Wen, and the others before handing a piece of information to Yun Jian. Sister Jian, an international criminal will pass by here later. 2 weeks ago, he stole a treasure from our organization. It's worth 5 billion yuan. Yun Jian's squinted eyes relaxed when she heard that. The people around them were baffled by what Qing Yu told Yun Jian. Just as they were bewildered, Yun Jian asked for a Beretta 92 FS pistol from Qing Yu right in front of them and walked to Qing Yu's sports car not far away, leaving her flowing hair behind. She turned to look at Qing Yu in front of everyone and opened the door with one foot in the sports car. She spoke to Qing Yu with a cold expression like a cold-blooded killer. You're right. Chapter 1796. Qing Yu did not mention what treasure the international criminal had stolen from the kosher mercenaries, but she emphasized 5 billion. It was not appropriate to mention the treasure in front of everyone as it would cause a commotion. The treasure was a necklace named Eternal. The material of the necklace was unique as it was made of pure natural crystals. After processing, it was made into a necklace that was priceless in the market. It was not an exaggeration to say that the necklace could nourish one's body and mind when worn. It could also prevent some illnesses and even prolong one's life. It was especially suitable for middle-aged people to wear, and Yun Jian had planned to give it to Qin Yiru. The international criminal did not have the ability to steal the necklace named Eternal from the kosher mercenaries. Yun Jian had sent the Eternal necklace to the factory for the most precise processing. The necklace itself was very valuable, and if anyone saw it, it would attract a lot of people to fight for it. It might even bring danger to Qin Yiru's life if it was given to Qin Yiru. Therefore, Yun Jian had sent the necklace for processing. After the processing, the necklace looked no different from a normal necklace on the surface. However, they did not expect it to be stolen right after the processing was completed and before it could be taken out of the factory. When Qing Yu mentioned that the criminal had stolen the organization's treasure and emphasized that it was worth 5 billion, she was indirectly telling Yun Jian that the necklace for Qin Yiru had been stolen. The Kosha mercenaries did not lack other treasures and Yun Jian did not need them. However, Yun Jian had her eyes on this item and had planned to give it to Qin Yiru. Naturally, she could not watch it be stolen by the international criminal. Yes. Qin Yu nodded and walked over obediently. She walked around Yun Jian to get into her sports car and started the engine. Just as Yun Jian was about to turn around and sit in the front passenger seat, Gu Junjian came over in time. Sit in my car, I'll drive. My car is high, so I can take action after catching up to that car. It was easy for a sports car to chase after a car, but if one wanted to use a sniper rifle to snipe the tires of the car in front, the hit rate would be much higher. Gu Junjian got Yun Jian out of Qin Yu's sports car without hesitation. She retrieved a sniper rifle from Qin Yu's car and followed Gu Junjian to the jeep. Wang Defeng and her daughter, Zhu Wan, as well as Su Nina, who had shamelessly stayed at Gu Yunjian's house to freeload meals for several days, all had a change in expression. Junjian, we have to go on such a dangerous mission. How can we let you and your daughter be in danger? Gu Yunjian's university classmates were all soldiers. Naturally, they were very upright. They all rushed to Gu Yunjian's jeep. You, Officer Ji's daughter, why are you joining in the fun? Do you think that adults are not troublesome enough? This is not child's play. Are you trying to drag the adults down with you? Seeing that her husband was tagging along, she knew that this was dangerous. The other party was an international criminal. Wang Defeng, who had called Yun Jian weak earlier, yelled at Yun Jian again. Initially, Wang Defeng was too lazy to care about Yun Jian, but her husband was tagging along. What if something happened to her husband because of Yun Jian? Wang Defeng dared not imagine it. Officer Ji's wife. Your daughter's tagging along. Isn't she causing trouble for them? She hasn't graduated from the military school yet. Why is she in such a hurry to show off? Why doesn't she go to school to show off? Why must she join in the fun? Does she really think she's something? Wang Defeng panicked when she saw that Yun Jian had gotten into the jeep. She turned to yell at Qin Yiru. Qin Yiru ignored Wang Defeng and merely smiled. Qin Yiru knew about Yun Jian's identity, but she was thinking that it would be dangerous if her daughter did not tag along. Before Gu Junjian drove the car away, Yun Jian left Qin Yu a message. Chapter 1797. After Yun Jian asked Qin Yu to stay behind to protect Qin Yiru, the jeep sped away at lightning speed. Gu Yunjian's jeep had 3 rows of seats. The driver's seat and the passenger's seat could fit 2 people, the left and right seats in the second row could fit 2 people, and the last row could fit 3 people if they squeezed together. There was a total of 7 people. Yun Jian was sitting in the second seat by the window while Gu Junjian was driving. Other than Yun Jian, there were 5 of Gu Yunjian's university classmates who got into the car. When the jeep sped away, Wang Defeng's cursing could still be heard in the wind. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. She left Qin Yu where she was, so she was not afraid that Wang Defeng would do anything to her mother. I've calculated. The gray Bugatti Veyron should be here soon. Junjian, turn the car to the main road. We'll be able to track it if we keep an eye out there. The middle-aged man who sat next to Gu Junjian was Yu Chaoning. Among the group, he was the one who was doing the best other than Gu Junjian. Yu Chaoning lowered his head to look at the watch on his wrist as he spoke seriously. There were a few intersections in Nanlin Road. No one could guess which one the international criminal would escape from. If they missed the international criminal, Gu Yunjian's mission would be considered a failure. However, there was a main road in Nanlin Road. They would have to pass through that main road if they wanted to pass through these intersections. Yu Chaoning was amazing. He could calculate the time and roughly predict when the international criminal would arrive. He asked everyone to keep an eye out at the main road so that they could chase after the car once it left. After Yu Chaoning finished his words, the people around him started searching. Super, you're really good at this. We'll depend on you to find the international criminal's gray Bugatti Veyron. Thank goodness you're here. Super, you're really a super. If this international criminal escapes from right under our noses today, do you still want our old faces? Gu Yunjian's university classmates chatted with each other as they searched for vehicles passing by. When going out on a mission, the scariest thing was not being able to find the target. To put it bluntly, if you can't even find your target, what kind of mission is this? Might as well go home and stay there. In any case, you won't even have the luck to meet the target. It was as if you suddenly wanted to go to the toilet or take a dump, but you couldn't even find a latrine. How could you find a latrine to take a dump? At this time, it was crucial to have someone with quick reflexes to lead everyone to the correct location to find the target. Just as everyone was looking for a target and praising Yu Chowning to the extreme, a delicate female voice that was even more pleasant than a singer's rang out, startling everyone present. Drive the car to the third intersection. He will definitely pass by the third intersection. Even Yu Chowning, who had a very accurate estimation, didn't dare to make a conclusion on which intersection on Nanlin Road the international criminal would take. Hence, he asked Gu Junjian to drive the car to the main intersection and wait there. No one present had any intention of looking down on Yun Jian. However, how could Yun Jian be so sure that the international criminal would escape from the third intersection? Why would he definitely pass by the third intersection? If we stop the car in the wrong direction, we'll miss him. If we stop the car at the main intersection, even if we discover that his car is further away from us, we can still chase after him. A middle-aged man looked around and asked Yun Jian in a serious tone. This was a mission. It wasn't child's play. He will definitely take the third intersection. Yun Jian pursed her lips and repeated. Chapter 1798. In response to Yun Jian's insistence, the man remained silent for 2 seconds and did not respond to her. Yun Jian was Team Monarch/God. She was not as simple as she looked. However, at that moment time was money. If Yun Jian was wrong, she would be letting an international fugitive escape. She couldn't bear the consequences of her actions. What should we do? Should we listen to her? An honest-looking man sitting in the last row paused for 2 seconds before asking. No. This mission is not a game. We'd rather chase after the grey Bugatti Veyron than take the risk. Moreover, the third intersection is quite a distance away from where we are now. Who's going to bear the responsibility if we make a mistake? I know you're Team Monarch/God and I don't mean to belittle you, but at this juncture, we can't afford to make any mistakes. The man who asked Yun Jian the reason earlier did not hear Yun Jian's explanation, so he insisted on his opinion calmly. That's right. Even if the car really passes by the third intersection, let's just wait at the main intersection for safety's sake. What if he doesn't pass by there? Yes, we agree with Yongheng. The rest of the middle-aged men, except for the honest man, unanimously agreed with this man's statement. The middle-aged man who refuted Yun Jian was called Kai Yongheng. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and said nothing. Instead, she said to Gu Junjian, Dad, let's switch seats. I'll drive. Since they did not believe her, she would wait and see. Even if they were to chase after the Bugatti Veyron at the third intersection, it would not be a problem for her. You'll drive? Do you have a driver's license? The man named Kai Yongheng asked again. It was obvious that this man named Kai Yongheng was very old-fashioned. Just as Kai Yongheng finished his sentence, the honest man sitting in the third row suddenly pointed into the distance and exclaimed, That grey Bugatti Veyron! Grey Bugatti Veyron, that's the one. I can't be wrong. They saw a grey Bugatti Veyron speeding toward them from afar. It was heading toward the second intersection. It's heading towards the second intersection. Army construction, start the car. Kai Yongheng was excited. The second intersection wasn't particularly far from here, but it wasn't particularly close either. He could still force himself to keep up. They saw the grey Bugatti Veyron make a big turn at the intersection. Just when everyone thought it was going to the second intersection, it suddenly narrowed the curve and slipped into the third intersection. It really went to the third intersection? Did that mean that Yun Jian was right? Kai Yongheng's face stiffened, and he didn't react for a long time. The distance from here was not short at all. Moreover, it was very likely that they would lose the car. Kai Yongheng and everyone else regretted that they had stopped Yun Jian from speaking. At this moment, Yun Jian had quickly swapped seats with Gu Junjian. She sat in the driver's seat, started the engine, released the clutch, and stepped on the accelerator. The car rushed out in a single file and chased after the grey Bugatti Veyron. The few people sitting in the car leaned forward fiercely. They grabbed the armrest as fast as they could and stared at Yunjian driving. It would take some time to drive from here to the third intersection. By that time, the gray Bugatti Veyron would have already bypassed the street at the third intersection and turned into another intersection. Although this wasn't the downtown area, a car driving on the road would disappear in a few seconds. You wouldn't even know where it had driven to. Yunjian led everyone around a few intersections at the fastest speed. Every time they passed by an intersection, they would move as fast as lightning. Moreover, every time they were about to hit someone's house, they would move forward fiercely. Everyone in the car was so scared that their faces turned pale. That car has already disappeared. Can you really find it? Can you really find it? Just as Kai Yonghen finished speaking, Yunjian had already led everyone to a deserted and flat road. They saw that gray Bugatti Veyron was speeding ahead of them more than 10 meters away. It has already left you behind. How can you still find it? Moreover, it wasn't the first time that she had calculated so accurately. Kai Yonghen's eyes widened in shock as he asked Yunjian. Yunjian's smirk was reflected in the rearview mirror as she suddenly stepped on the accelerator and uttered something that left everyone dumbfounded. I'm not going to let you go, but I'm going to let you go. Chapter 1799. There was a certain degree of arrogance in Yunjian's words, but it made everyone gasp at her words. If Yunjian had said that earlier, they would have thought that she was boasting. However, judging from the accuracy of Yunjian's guess, including how she drove the jeep at lightning speed to catch up with the gray Bugatti Veyron that they had lost, everyone believed Yunjian completely. Since she dared to say such words, she definitely had the confidence to back it up. Team Monarch/God was no ordinary person. They had thought of it before, but never had they expected Yunjian to be so capable. This ability made everyone at the scene go crazy. While they were still in shock, Yunjian gestured to Gu Junjian. As the jeep drove, she switched seats with Gu Junjian. Hold the steering wheel tight and don't let go of the accelerator. It's noticed that we're tailing it. The border of Longmen City isn't far away. If we leave Longmen City, the troops won't be able to make it here and your mission will be considered a failure. Yunjian never called Gu Junjian dad when they were on a mission. Okay. Gu Junjian was very cooperative. What about you? Kai Yonghen, Yu Chaoning, and the others asked Yunjian in unison when they saw that Yunjian had arranged for Gu Junjian to drive. Yunjian, who stood in front of them, smirked and said, "That's right. See the red Porsche sports car in front of the gray Bugatti Veyron?" Yunjian asked. Kai Yonghen, Yu Chaoning, and the others turned to look ahead. In front of the gray Bugatti Veyron, a red Porsche sports car and the gray Bugatti Veyron were driving on the highway one after the other. The gray Bugatti Veyron was at the back. These two cars? Kai Yonghen was cut off by Yunjian just as he spoke. The information was wrong.
The international criminal you want to catch and the thing I want to take back are both in the red Porsche sports car in front of the gray Bugatti Veyron.
The gray Bugatti Veyron in the back, if I'm not wrong, was just a cover from the beginning. The people sitting inside are at most the subordinates of the international criminal sitting in the red Porsche sports car. Yunjian, on the other hand, was not in a hurry to make a move. It was not the right time yet. She returned to her original seat and spoke to the people around her. What? What's the meaning of this? The surrounding men all stared blankly at Yunjian. What did that mean? Just when everyone thought that the person sitting in the gray Bugatti Veyron was the international criminal, Yunjian suddenly said that the international criminal was not in the Bugatti Veyron, but in the red Porsche sports car. Just as everyone was puzzled, Yunjian continued with a smile. Sniping the gray Bugatti Veyron with a sniper rifle won't work anymore. If we try to snipe it forcefully, the gray Bugatti Veyron will come crashing down on us and the red Porsche sports car will be able to escape right under our noses. So we mustn't fire. Realization dawned on everyone when they heard what Yunjian said, but it was followed by a moment of bewilderment. The international criminal was indeed an international criminal. If it were not for Yunjian today, he would definitely be able to escape from Longmen City with his cunning. While the group was exclaiming, they did not forget to gasp. Yunjian was really something. What should we do then? At this speed, it's impossible to overtake. Are we going to keep chasing the red Porsche? Kai Yonghen asked with a frown. Those who kept shouting, "What should we do? What should we do?" were the most useless people.
Chase after the grey Bugatti Veyron as fast as you can, Yunjian suddenly told Gu Junjian with a frown.
With Yunjian's order, Gu Junjian stepped on the accelerator and chased after the grey Bugatti Veyron. Soon, the three cars were side by side, one after the other. The one at the front was the red Porsche. The second was the grey Bugatti Veyron. The third was Gu Yunjian's Jeep. Yunjian was in the third car while the international criminal was in the first car. Yunjian suddenly pulled open the side door beside her and a strong gust of wind blew into the car. Seeing Yunjian standing up, Kai Yonghen, Yu Chaoning, and everyone else stared at her with widened eyes in horror. Kai Yonghen in particular asked Yunjian fearfully in front of everyone. Chapter 1800. If you could be like me, risking your life for survival and victory in every mission, you wouldn't be the coward you are today, Yunjian suddenly said to Kai Yonghen as she stood up. The meaning behind her words was profound at first, but after listening closely, one could understand what Yunjian was trying to say. Sometimes, gambling with one's life might not necessarily result in one losing one's life. On the contrary, those who were so worried that they did not dare to step forward would die the earliest. Whether it was Yunjian who was slaying God in her past life or Yunjian after her rebirth, she had always found a way out for herself in a hopeless situation. This was because she had always believed in one thing. She might not be as good as many people, but when she was forced to a dead end and was forced to take another step back, there was a bottomless abyss below her. She would then cut off all thoughts of retreating. She would then unleash a strength that exceeded her own instincts and become the best of the best. Yunjian's words gave Kai Yonghen and the group of men a lot of motivation. This was something that even a teenage girl like her could do, yet they were afraid of it again and again. Just when Kai Yonghen, Yu Chaoning, and the rest were stunned by Yunjian's words, Yunjian had already grabbed the handrail in the car and jumped out of the car. Even if an ordinary person wanted to jump out of a car, they would prepare for half a day, just like how they would hesitate for half a day before jumping out of a long jump. However, Yunjian did not hesitate at all. She did not care if she succeeded or not. She grabbed the handrail and jumped out of the car. And at this moment, the scene that made everyone present so shocked that it was as if they had stopped breathing was the most exciting and blood-boiling scene that they had ever seen in their entire lives. They saw Yunjian, who had jumped out of the car, grab the handrail. Even though the car was speeding, she did a flip at the speed of 1 second and threw herself onto the car roof. The people in the car did not even hear the sound from the car roof. However, they knew that Yunjian did not miss. That meant that Yunjian was definitely on the car roof. When an ordinary person jumped from one place to another, there would definitely be a loud bang. However, when Yunjian jumped onto the car roof, she controlled her strength so lightly that there was no sound at all. This scene caused everyone present to be so shocked that their faces turned pale. That was too amazing. What she did was not something that could be done by an ordinary person. However, that was not the most shocking part. In less than 3 seconds, a petite figure appeared in front of the driver's seat's glass. Yunjian took 2 consecutive leaps and arrived in front of the red Porsche in a flash. In the blink of an eye, she had jumped from the third car to the first car at a speed of more than 100 kilometers per hour, despite the fact that she had not been thrown out of the car at all. That girl is too terrifying. I've never seen such a terrifying person. This frightening thinking ability and her nimble movements. Could she be some international big shot? One of the men exclaimed. As soon as the exclamation ended, the first red Porsche suddenly turned to the side and braked in front of everyone. Seeing this, Gu Junjian immediately turned around. The grey Bugatti Veyron also stopped. When Gu Junjian stopped the car and everyone got out, they saw that Yunjian had already forced the red Porsche to stop. Then, she pulled out a figure from the driver's seat. The owner of the figure was a man in his 40s. The man was holding a box in his arms. It was Yunjian's necklace. Yunjian stepped on the head of the man who had fallen to the ground in front of everyone and sneered at the man. Chapter 1801. Yunjian had spoken in Portuguese instead of Mandarin. The people present had limited exposure to languages, so naturally, they could not understand what Yunjian was saying. However, the man who was being held down by Yunjian could understand. Since the man was an assassin, he must have been trained and learned many languages. Perhaps the man knew fewer languages than Yun Jian, but the Portuguese that Yun Jian used was definitely something that the man knew. Since there were quite a number of people who spoke Portuguese around the world, there was a high proportion of them who received missions there. Naturally, it was one of the languages that they had to learn. As expected, the man's face darkened as soon as Yun Jian finished her sentence. From afar, Gu Junjian, Yu Chaoning, and Kai Yonghen could clearly see the man's complexion change at lightning speed. His face, which had a trace of blood, suddenly turned pale. If you dare reveal my identity in public, it won't be as simple as death. Just as Kai Yonghen, Yu Chaoning, and the rest were shocked by what Yun Jian had said, Yun Jian spoke again. She continued speaking to the man in fluent Portuguese. Even if the man was caught by the police, he would definitely die as an international criminal. He must have known that as an international assassin or secret agent, there was only one outcome for being caught or failing a mission: death. Yun Jian was not stupid. Since she dared to reveal her identity to this international criminal, she knew that he would not reveal it. Yun Jian's words earlier were a warning to the man that if he dared to spout nonsense, it would not be as simple as death. She had 1,000 ways to make people experience that the most painful thing in the world was not death, but living a life worse than death. The feeling of being tortured to death was excruciating pain that came from the depths of one's soul. Slaying God was known for her ruthlessness in the underworld. Not only was she powerful, but more importantly, she was cruel and ruthless. The way she dealt with people who were in the same profession was terrifying. Brainwashed killers referred to killers who had been brainwashed. Such people did not have their own emotions and thoughts. They only knew how to do things according to their masters. Even if they were caught, no one could get anything out of them because they only listened to their masters. However, the way Slaying God dealt with people back then had once made the brainwashed assassin, who was known to have the strongest willpower in the world, beg for death. In the end, he gave up the mastermind. Of course, the man believed that Yun Jian had the ability to capture him from the police and make him suffer a fate worse than death. A fate worse than death. Therefore, the man would rather be caught and executed by the police than reveal Yun Jian's identity. No one knew what Yun Jian said in the language of the country, but everyone could clearly see the man's body tremble slightly. As a grown man, his head was stepped on by Yun Jian. Not only did he not feel humiliated, but he was so scared that his whole body trembled. Whether it was Gu Junjian, Kai Yonghen, or Yu Chaoning, all of them were dumbfounded at this moment. It wasn't the first time they had caught such a felon. Not to mention that the man in front of them was an international felon. Even if it was an ordinary felon, when they were about to be caught by the police, they would take the last resort to ask for help to fight for a chance to escape. No one would want to give up hope of survival. But what did they see? Why was this international criminal, this man, running away so vigorously just now? He looked like he would rather die than submit. Now that Yun Jian was stepping on his head with her foot, he did not feel humiliated at all. Instead, he was trembling all over. Was he afraid of Yun Jian? Why? Was it because of what Yun Jian said in the language of the country? Kai Yonghen could not hold back his words. He walked up to Yun Jian in front of everyone and looked at her. Chapter 1802. At this moment, Yun Jian's foot was still on the man's head. She lowered her head slightly and looked at the man coldly. When she heard Kai Yonghen's words, she raised her head slightly and glanced at Kai Yonghen and the people around him. Do you want to know what I said to him? Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and looked at Kai Yonghen with a strange smile. Kai Yonghen took a deep breath for no reason. He took a deep breath and nodded at Yun Jian. He was curious, not just curious. From when Yun Jian guessed which path the international criminal would take, to when they lost track of the international criminal, Yun Jian could still figure out every path the international criminal would take. Then, she caught up with him and jumped out of the car. At this moment, she said something that made the international criminal so scared. Originally, Gu Yunjian's mission was to delay the international criminal for 10 minutes, and the military would immediately bring people over to arrest him. Even Kai Yonghen, Yu Chaoning, and the others were not confident that they could delay the international criminal for 10 minutes. However, Yun Jian was good. The international criminal, a 2S international criminal, was as easy as killing an ant in her hands. Not only did she stop him, she even stepped on him like a cabbage. What was even more bizarre was that the other party did not even dare to say a word. Do you really want to know what I said to him just now? She stepped on the man's head and slid it twice like she was stepping on a soccer ball. Her long thighs were wrapped in a pair of black tights. She looked at Kai Yong-hen again with a smirk and repeated what she said just now. Hearing Yun Jian repeat what she said just now, Kai Yong-hen and the people standing beside him were slightly stunned. However, Kai Yong-hen still said, yes. However, before Kai Yong-hen could finish his sentence, Yun Jian's voice suddenly rang out. Her voice was crisp and clear. Get down. Yun Jian's words came out of nowhere. Gu Junjian, Kai Yong-hen, and the others were all stunned. Although they didn't know what Yun Jian meant, they still bent down as fast as they could. Behind Gu Junjian and the others, the subordinate of the international criminal who had been driving the grey Bugatti Veyron earlier made a comeback. He held a Ruger P345 automatic pistol in his hand and fired a bullet at Yun Jian's head. Gu Junjian and the rest stood opposite Yun Jian. This international criminal's underling was standing in the dark. If Gu Junjian and the rest did not lie down, they would be accidentally injured. Yun Jian. After she finished speaking, Gu Junjian and the rest quickly lay down. She dodged the bullet that was aimed at her head and kicked the international criminal towards Gu Junjian like a rubber ball. Suppress him. After she finished speaking, Yun Jian pounced towards the international criminal's underling. Her speed was as fast as a cheetah. She was so fast that the naked eye couldn't see her clearly. Yun Jian's conversation with Kai Yong-hen earlier was to let the international criminal's underling, who was hiding in the dark, find the right opportunity to attack her and then counterattack. Gu Yunjian's fighting ability was not to be underestimated. After the international criminal was kicked by Yun Jian, his entire body went limp. Gu Junjian pounced over and pinned the international criminal down. The international criminal did not even have time to react and escape. At this time, Kai Yong-hen and the rest finally reacted and went to help Gu Junjian. However, their eyes suddenly caught a glimpse of Yun Jian not far away. She was dashing towards the man who had tried to assassinate her. When the man saw Yun Jian dashing towards him, he was frightened and fired a few more shots at Yun Jian. Seeing this, Yun Jian pounced on the ground and rolled twice on the ground. When she stood up, she was already close to the man. Even the veterans in the army couldn't compare to her in terms of skills. She killed decisively like a grim reaper. Kai Yong-hen and the rest who were far away trembled. They saw that Yun Jian had already snatched the gun from the man's hand and tied him up with his own jacket in a few moves. The moment the people from the army rushed over, this was the scene that they saw. A teenage girl was stepping on the man's back with one foot. The man's stomach was on the ground and he was tied up by his own jacket. His struggle was futile. The girl's men from the army rushed to the scene. After lighting up the scene, they turned their heads and squinted their eyes to look over. Chapter 1803. Initially, the people in the military only wanted Gu Junjian to help them stall for time so that the military would not be able to arrest this international criminal. Because the person they wanted to arrest was an international criminal, they sent their best troops this time. But when the group of people arrived at the scene, they saw Gu Junjian and his men squatting on the ground and suppressing the international criminal. Yun Jian was stepping on the international criminal subordinate's back, not at all afraid that the international criminal subordinate would be able to escape from her. This scene made the troops who arrived tremble. What the F***ck was going on? They rushed here to prepare for a big fight. Even if they were to accidentally sacrifice themselves in the battle with the international criminal, it was possible. But now, before they could even make a move, the international criminal was already subdued by Gu Junjian and this little girl. Although they were surprised, the group of people who rushed over still heaved a sigh of relief. Fighting with an international criminal, who had a gun in his hands. There would definitely be casualties. These people in the army all had relatives. If one person died, it would mean that they would harm an entire family. But for the sake of the people they had to fight. If they didn't get rid of these people in this era, how could there be peace in the modern era? But what these people didn't expect was that Gu Junjian and his men actually managed to subdue the international criminal. They only had a few people. They actually managed to subdue the international criminal. This was a great achievement. The leader of the men in the army walked towards Gu Junjian. This man obviously knew Gu Junjian. When he spoke, Yun Jian could tell that this man was the one who called Gu Junjian just now. The man was stunned. Then he looked at Gu Junjian and said, Gu Junjian. Old Gu, good job. You actually brought people to arrest him. Ahem. The ones who arrested him weren't us. It was her. At this moment, Gu Yunjian's university classmate, the man named Yu Chaoning, looked at Yunjian and said, What? The ones who arrested him weren't you guys, but this little girl.
The man and the people standing behind him were all stunned.
You can take him away. Dad, Mom has been waiting for a long time. Let's go back. Just as the man and the people standing behind him were all stunned, Yunjian spoke to Gu Junjian. Obviously, she didn't want to make a big deal out of this. Old Wang, my daughter doesn't want to be in the limelight. You know that. We'll leave first. After Gu Junjian handed the international criminal over to the man, he said to the man. The man called Old Wang was stunned. He opened his mouth and finally nodded. After Yunjian retrieved the necklace she had given Qin Yiru from the man, she turned to get into the jeep with Gu Junjian and the others. The necklace was in a box, so no one could see what it was. The jeep left the army. At the entrance of the Xinjia Hotel, Qin Yiru, Wang Defeng, and the women and children had been standing there for a long time. During this time, Wang Defeng kept talking about Yunjian. Seeing that the men hadn't come back yet, Wang Defeng was so worried about her man that she almost cried. At this moment, she still kept talking to Qin Yiru coldly. Why did you let that little girl go with you? Are you trying to make trouble? If my man can't come back because of that little girl, I'll kill you.
Wang Defeng spoke eloquently, and the words that came out of her mouth were very unpleasant.
Just as Wang Defeng was talking non-stop, Gu Yunjian's jeep drove back. Seeing that the men had returned safely, everyone present heaved a sigh of relief. When Yunjian and the others got out of the jeep, Wang Defeng, who was relieved, walked over and grabbed her man's hand. She started talking again. Dear, are you okay? That little girl didn't make trouble for you, right? She's so troublesome. She doesn't have the self-awareness of a child. She only made trouble for the adults. This kind of person is the most disgusting. Wang Defeng used her loudspeaker to talk to Yunjian and Qin Yiru. Su Nina, who was standing next to her, also raised her head. She was very interested in listening to Wang Defeng scolding Yunjian and Qin Yiru. However, just as Wang Defeng was scolding Yunjian and Qin Yiru, Wang Defeng's man suddenly shouted back at Wang Defeng. If it wasn't for Junjian's daughter, we wouldn't have been able to catch up with that international criminal. Not to mention whether or not they could catch him. If the higher-ups give us a reward this time, all the reward should go to Junjian's daughter. Chapter 1804. Wang Defeng was not wise, but Wang Defeng's husband was still a very wise man. As a soldier, his thoughts were naturally not like Wang Defeng's. Wang Defeng opened her mouth, but in the end, she could not say anything. Her husband actually said that everything that happened just now was all thanks to Yunjian. Without Yunjian, they would not have been able to complete the mission. This explanation shocked Wang Defeng so much that she was stunned. Then, Su Nina, who was beside her, also trembled. Hey! You guys don't know, but that international criminal just now, what international criminal is that? Yunjian's daughter just stepped on that international criminal's head, and that international criminal was so scared that he was trembling all over. Now that the incident had passed, Gu Yunjian's university classmate used a storytelling tone to narrate what happened just now. I'll say, even if Yunjian's daughter just exploded that international criminal's head, that international criminal did not dare to say a word. Yunjian's daughter is simply too amazing. Ha ha ha. Gu Yunjian's university classmate was getting more and more excited as he spoke, but what he said scared Wang Defeng and Su Nina so much that their faces turned pale. Especially when he said that she exploded that international criminal's head. Su Nina looked deeply at Yunjian, and her face turned pale. Su Nina had been staying at Gu Yunjian's house for the past few days to freeload, and she was already shameless to the extreme. Later, when Gu Junjian told her about it, Su Nina's reaction told everyone that no matter what he said, she was still going to freeload at his house. However, at this moment, Su Nina looked at Yunjian, and her face turned pale. She was really scared. Who could tell her why Qin Yiru looked so easy to bully, but she actually had such a terrifying daughter. At this moment, Su Nina was hugging her son, Su Liao's head, but she was thinking in her heart. She would never go to Gu Yunjian's house again. It was too scary. Compared to her own life, going to Gu Yunjian's house was simply risking her life. Hence, Su Nina slipped away without anyone noticing, and she did not even say goodbye. When Yunjian saw this, a cold smile formed on her face. Naturally, she knew what Su Nina was thinking. Once she was home, she took a shower and packed her luggage simply. Tomorrow, she was going to the countryside with Chen Xini. She was going to stay there for a period of time, so naturally, she had to bring some necessities. The moment she went to bed, she heard a text message notification sound from her phone. There was a text message from Huaxia's text message. Where are you going tomorrow? Go to bed, sleep early. She's text a text message, a text a reply. She replied to replies, text a reply to him, replied to reply, a reply to reply, take a guess, to. After sending the text message, Yunjian turned off her phone and went to sleep. Ce did not send any more text messages, because he knew that Yunjian was about to fall asleep. The next day, when Yunjian arrived at Chen Xini's house, she saw Zhang Xiaofeng helping Chen Xini to load her bags into her car. When he saw that Yunjian was carrying a simple shoulder bag, he looked at Yunjian and shouted, "Master!" Obviously, Zhang Xiaofeng was going to the countryside as well, and he had probably asked for leave from school. Chen Xini had already gotten into the car. She had just recovered, and it was not suitable for her to stand for too long. Now, her head was leaning against the car. "Have you set off?" Yunjian asked Zhang Xiaofeng as she spoke.
Master, we're waiting for one more person.
Zhang Xiaofeng smiled wickedly at Yunjian, as though he was betraying his master. Yunjian glanced sideways at Zhang Xiaofeng. Just as she was wondering what Zhang Xiaofeng's expression meant, someone suddenly wrapped his arms around her waist, and a fresh familiar scent wafted into her nose. It was him. Ce hugged Yunjian intimately from behind. "Big brother C. You're here." "Haha. I'll leave first. I'm going to look for Xini." Zhang Xiaofeng laughed as he glanced at Ce. Then, he ran into the car like a wisp of smoke. He originally wanted to call Ce Grand Master, since he was his master's husband. Chapter 1805. Yunjian was still puzzled yesterday about why Ce had sent her a message asking her where she was going, but she did not think much about it. Today, Ce had appeared. She pressed her lips together as Ce hugged her from the back. Yunjian looked up at his handsome face and asked, "Didn't you go back to the organization?" "I'm done with the organization. I'll be by your side for the time being." Ce looked at Yunjian lovingly, only reflecting her in his deep and beautiful eyes. It was Zhang Xiaofeng who told Ce that Yunjian was going to the countryside to accompany Chen Xini to recuperate. Ce rarely appeared in the past few days after he received the news. He would either show up for a while or leave after a while, staying in the organization to finish all his work and plan to go to the countryside with Yunjian. Leaving all the worldly affairs behind, no one could disturb him and Xiao Jian in the tranquil environment of the countryside. Ce had even sent Adam and Mo-san away this time. Before he came to look for Yunjian, Ce had told Adam and Mo-san to go wherever they liked. Just as Ce's plan was going well, Yunjian suddenly suggested, "Xiao Zhu and the other two haven't come out to play for a long time. Why don't we apply for leave for them and take them out for a walk?" Before Yunjian could finish, Ce's thin lips moved to reject her directly. "No." Yunjian was speechless. Yunjian blinked. If they were not at the entrance of Chen Xini's house right now, Ce would have cupped Yunjian's head and pressed his lips against hers directly when he saw how adorable Yunjian was. "Jian, we're leaving. My grandpa's house is a little far from Longmen City. We have to depart earlier." At this moment, Chen Xini's voice sounded. She couldn't move her head, so she could only shout from the car. 2 hours later, Chen Xini's private car went around many mountains and finally arrived at a place called Jinda Village. Jinda Village was a village near the mountains. From here, it would take half an hour to reach the nearest town. Moreover, Jinda Village was not rich. Every family's house was only 1 story high. When Yunjian was reborn, she came to Xinjiang town. Xinjiang town was a town while this was just a village. Yunjian used to roam the peak of the world, and the simplest place she had been to after her rebirth was probably Xinjiang town. However, a town was still a town. It was definitely much better than the countryside. The people in Jinda village were poor and there was no place to work. They had to go to town to work, but the daily trip to town was not enough to cover their salary. Therefore, the people here usually farmed for a living. Chen Sini's family was not poor. Her mother had asked her grandpa to leave Jinda village more than once, but he refused to leave. Since her grandpa's wife, Chen Sini's grandmother, had passed away early, Chen Sini's grandfather and grandmother had been living in Jinda village since they were children. From learning how to walk to running and jumping, getting to know each other, getting married and staying together for the rest of their lives, Chen Sini's grandmother had passed away early. Her grandpa did not leave because he did not want to leave the land where he had lived with his lover for the rest of his life. When one was gone, it was an obsession to stay with a hometown that had changed. Some people could stay with this obsession for the rest of their lives. "We're here. This is the place," Chen Sini told Yunjian as she turned to look at Yunjian after getting off the car with Zhang Xiaofeng's help. The car was parked at the village entrance. After Yunjian and the rest alighted, the car drove back to Longmen City. It was already 7 in the evening when they left at 5. There was still a hint of afterglow lingering in the sky, looking beautiful. Chapter 1806. It was easy to find the first house at the entrance of the village. The houses here were all 1 story high and were not made of cement. Instead, they were made of mud and tiles. These mud and tile houses were still left in many villages in the modern era and were not demolished. Many villages in the modern era had been replaced with mud and tile houses. However, in 1999, most of the houses in the villages were still mud and tile houses. These houses did not look sturdy and were very simple. It was obvious that these were the houses of the poor. However, in this era, all the houses in the villages were like this. Those who could build cement houses were the richest in the village. The roads in the countryside were not like those in the town or the city. The roads here were all bumpy and filled with cement. It was unrealistic for some people who were used to living in the big cities to move here permanently. However, it was very romantic for rich people to stay here for a short period of time. Fly, 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 fly. The butterfly is flying. Yunjian saw a few children playing at the entrance of the first house at the entrance of the village. "Dong Dong, is Grandpa home?" Chen Sini looked at one of the children and called out to him. The boy was called He Dong Dong. He was Chen Sini's cousin. He was 6 years old this year and was very smart. "Sister Sini." He Dong Dong saw Chen Sini and stopped playing with his friends. He turned around and ran into the house. "Grandpa, Grandpa." Sister Sini and brother Xiaofeng brought a pretty sister and a handsome brother back. He Dong Dong shouted as he ran into the house. After a while, an old man with a walking stick came out. This old man was Chen Sini's grandfather, He Qing. He Qing used to be a teacher and was a role model. He was very strict with his children since they were young. Therefore, Chen Sini's mother, He Xia, had the temperament of a lady from a wealthy family. He Qing was now relying on his pension to get by. "Sini and Xiaofeng are back? Do you have guests? Quick, come in." He Qing invited Yunjian and Ce into the house in a friendly manner. Although the house was simple and crude, He Qing still made a cup of tea for Yunjian and Ce. Yunjian and Ce didn't dislike it at all. "Our pretty big sister and handsome big brother boyfriend and girlfriend?" At this moment, He Dong Dong, who had been playing outside, surrounded Yunjian and Ce with a group of friends and asked curiously. Yunjian and Ce had outstanding looks. They had never seen such a beautiful young lady and handsome young man before, so they all rushed into the house. A few children even ran to the village to gather all the other children to watch Yunjian and Ce. Surrounded by so many small heads, Yunjian felt a little embarrassed. Yes. However, Ce, who was sitting next to Yunjian, didn't look embarrassed at all in front of so many children. He even hugged Yunjian's waist and hooked his arm around her waist. The handsome Junyan made all the children stare at him in a daze. How could there be such a good-looking big brother in this world? I heard from my big brother that boyfriend and girlfriend means husband and wife. Husband and wife have to kiss and hug each other at night. Shameful. A little girl hugged the little boy next to her and even pouted to show everyone that she wanted to kiss him. Does that mean hugging each other and bumping into each other like my parents? Last time, I secretly saw my dad hugging my mom without wearing any clothes. They were sticking to each other and bumping into each other. A smart kid added. As he spoke, he turned to look at Yunjian and Ce and asked innocently, "What's wrong?" Chapter 1807. The child asked innocently. He even blinked his eyes when he asked the question. His small head cooperated with the other curious little heads beside him. He didn't even realize that he had just asked such a shocking question. Yunjian, Ce, Chen Sini, and Zhang Xiaofeng were sitting at an old-fashioned square table in the main room of Chen Sini's grandfather, He Qing's house. At this moment, Yunjian and Ce were sitting close to each other. Ce was holding Yunjian's slender waist with one hand intimately. Chen Sini and Zhang Xiaofeng were sitting at the square table, each occupying a seat. After hearing the innocent child's words, Zhang Xiaofeng spat out a mouthful of tea water mixed with his own unique scent. The moment he spat out the tea water, Zhang Xiaofeng turned his head fiercely to prevent himself from spitting the tea water on anyone present. Cough, cough, cough. Cough. Zhang Xiaofeng was viciously robbed of his breath. He really didn't expect these mischievous children to say such things. What was worse was that these children were looking at Yunjian and Ce with expectant gazes, waiting for Yunjian and Ce's reply. This, cough, cough, cough. I see that there is still some sunlight outside. Sini, you haven't been in the sun for a long time. Let me bring you out to experience it. Zhang Xiaofeng randomly came up with an excuse and walked over to Chen Sini to help her up before walking out. At this time, the sun had already set. Perhaps the sun set later in Jinda village and rose later in the morning, so at this time, there was still a trace of afterglow outside. Grandfather, He Qing, was personally cooking in the kitchen. He said that he wanted to properly entertain Yunjian and Ce, these two guests who came from afar. After Zhang Xiaofeng found an excuse to bring Chen Sini out of the house, there was only Ce and Yunjian left in the house, along with the rowdy kids who were asking questions without knowing the gravity of the situation. Seeing that Ce and Yunjian were silent, Ce sized up Yunjian with his pair of beautiful eyes that made everything around them pale in comparison. The child who asked the question earlier innocently asked again, "Pretty sister, will handsome brother bump into each other? My mom said that only two people who love each other will do this. Doesn't handsome brother like pretty sister?" After the child finished speaking, all the children looked at Yunjian and Ce curiously. Yunjian's face was flushed the moment the child spoke. Ce's lips curled into a wicked smile. From beginning to end, he didn't move his eyes away from Yunjian's body. Under the expectant gazes of the group of children, Ce withdrew his hand from Yunjian's slender waist and said with a gentle gaze, "Her entire body is mine. Every part of her body belongs to me, so, what do you think?" Ce didn't say it out loud. When the child asked such an innocent and bashful question, Ce and Yunjian reacted differently. Yunjian's face turned slightly red, and her cheeks even turned pink. On the other hand, Ce's initial reaction was to raise his handsome face. That devilishly handsome face of his really deserved a beating. Then will handsome brother and beautiful sister really bump into each other? The child opened his not-so-good-looking face and smiled. He seemed to be bored, so he asked another question. Idiot, handsome brother means that he and pretty sister definitely won't stop at bumping into each other. At this moment, Chen Sini's cousin, He Dong Dong, added on mischievously. After he finished speaking, Yunjian's face turned even redder. The surrounding children all giggled. The child was still unsatisfied. He looked at Ce and asked curiously, "Then will the handsome brother hug the beautiful sister while bumping into her, kissing and hugging at the same time? My parents will do that." Chapter 1808. Yunjian felt like smacking Ce to death. He was probably the only person in the world who could say such things in front of a large group of children without blushing or skipping a beat. Most importantly, the group of children in front of him were all inexperienced children who did not know much about the world and were not scheming. They were all children who spoke without thinking. What are you talking about? Yunjian nudged Ce with her elbow as she was pulled into Ce's embrace. To Ce, it sounded like she was being coquettish with him. Subconsciously, his lips curled upwards. Ce, who did not feel any pain from being nudged by Yunjian, wished he could keep her in his arms for the rest of his life. He was willing to listen to her whining for the rest of his life, just like how she whined to him just now.
He really wanted to devour her without leaving any bones behind, so that she could never leave his side.
Do you like children, Xiaojian? Ce's lips pressed against Yunjian's ear, his mellow and alluring voice lingering around Yunjian's ears. Yunjian heard it clearly. Yunjian did not think much of Ce's sudden question. Children? If one were to ask if Yunjian liked children, one would have to look at the type of children they were. Why was that? Yunjian liked children like her younger brother, Xiao Yunzhu, Duan Li, and Duan Ye, who were obedient and a little lively when necessary. However, if they were like the brats she had met in the past who were unreasonable, and took the lead to bully kids younger than them. If they were brats like that, she would not like them. Ce watched as Yunjian's pretty face wore a thoughtful expression. As he watched, he could not help breaking into a grin. The group of children who stood around watching Yunjian and Ce were like curious babies. They did not make a sound but kept looking at Yunjian and Ce. Does pretty sister like a kid like me? Not only can I recite the text, but I can also help my parents with the housework. A little boy confidently patted his chest and said to Yunjian. Me too, me too. I'm so cute. Pretty sister must like me, right? A little girl with 2 ponytails shook her head. Her ponytail swayed left and right as she stood in front of Yunjian. She looked at Yunjian expectantly and asked. With this question, the surrounding children all rushed to ask Yunjian if she liked them in front of Yunjian. It was true that the children in the countryside were wild, but these children would not fight over this matter. They just argued verbally. Pretty sister is my cousin's friend. Of course she likes me the most. At this time, He Dong Dong shook her little head and said confidently. Pretty sister won't like you. I'm the cutest and prettiest sister. She must like someone like me the most. The little girl with 2 ponytails rushed to say. After saying this, the little girl blinked her eyes and looked at Yunjian. She looked at Yunjian with a pair of eyes that seemed to be able to speak. The sound of arguing in the house about which child Yunjian liked the most could be heard at the door. Zhang Xiaofeng and Chen Sini sat on the bench at the door. Because Chen Sini's head hurt, Zhang Xiaofeng let Chen Sini lean her head on his shoulder. The cousins who usually bickered the most were the most harmonious at this time. If it was in the past, Zhang Xiaofeng would always tease Chen Sini. But recently, because Chen Sini's head hit the ground and she almost died, he was very careful even when supporting Chen Sini. They would still argue a little, but now it was Zhang Xiaofeng who was the weaker one. Hey! Good thing we came out. Those kids in the house are too scary. Hearing the noise coming from the house, Zhang Xiaofeng could not help but complain. Chen Sini leaned her head on Zhang Xiaofeng's shoulder and grinned. She was really happy that Yunjian could be so happy. At this moment, a muffled male voice came from the house. That mellow and pleasant voice immediately stopped the quarreling children in the house. The words that came out of Ce's mouth were overbearing and arrogant, as if she was fighting over a lollipop with a child. Chapter 1809. Ce's expression was fierce, like a bully who had snatched a lollipop from a child's hand and told the child to go to the store to buy another lollipop for him. Ce's behavior stunned the group of children present for quite a while. Among them was a 4-year-old girl who had been standing in the corner since the beginning. She had been looking at Yunjian and Ce with great interest. In the end, it didn't take long for the surrounding boys and girls to start quarreling. The 4-year-old girl wasn't very sensible to begin with. Children in the countryside were usually left to their own devices. When they were young, they would be allowed to follow a large group of children to go out and play with a large group of children. Perhaps this phenomenon was less common in the countryside now because people nowadays treated children like treasures. In the past, people were poor. The poorer they were, the more children they had. A couple would usually have no less than 3 children. In fact, there were many villagers who had 7 or 8 children. This wasn't surprising at all. With more children, there was less love and care. In the early years, even the death of a child wasn't a big deal to some parents. Of course, 1999 wasn't as feudal as it used to be. In this era, the status of children was much higher in the eyes of some parents. This 4-year-old girl was young to begin with. She had followed her brothers and sisters here to join in the fun. In fact, she didn't understand what was happening at all. But after a while, this big brother suddenly said something fiercely, like a bully who had snatched a child's lollipop. Xueqi's actions scared the 4-year-old girl to tears.
Wah! Big brother is so fierce. Wah 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 wah. So fierce I'm scared.
As she spoke, the 4-year-old girl seemed to be unable to find her way home. Tears fell from her cheeks as she walked aimlessly out of the door. She even started yelling. This gave Chen Xini and Zhang Xiaofeng, who were sitting outside the door, a fright. What's going on? Big brother C is fighting with a child? Zhang Xiaofeng's eyes widened. He was clearly frightened by the scene in front of him. What's going on? My master's husband actually scared a child to tears. This is too awesome. Fighting with a child? Chen Xini could feel Siyi's deep love for Yun Jian. She covered her mouth and laughed. Then she lifted her head from Zhang Xiaofeng's shoulder and urged Zhang Xiaofeng. Hurry up and chase the little girl back. She ran out crying. What about you? Does your head still hurt? Zhang Xiaofeng looked at Chen Xini and asked. I'm fine. Go after that little girl, Chen Xini said. Before Chen Xini could finish, Yun Jian walked out of the house. Si followed behind her. A large group of children followed behind them. Si was probably the only person who could talk to a child and make them cry. Yun Jian glanced at him, then chased after the crying little girl. After the little girl walked out of He Qing's house, she started crying and running at lightning speed. In the countryside, neighbors lived next to each other. Now that the sky was completely dark and the street lamps were lit up, these neighbors liked to sit at the door and chat with their neighbors before it was time to sleep after dinner. In this era, there were no smartphones or electronic products. Other than working and eating, people were used to sitting together and chatting. When the neighbors saw the little girl running back in tears, they curiously took a few more glances at her. Although the little girl's legs were short, her running speed was not slow. The little girl's house was not far away. In the blink of an eye, the little girl rushed into the house. Not long after, an old lady in her 50s or 60s walked out fiercely with the crying little girl in her arms. Granny, an older brother is bullying me. Boo-hoo. He's so fierce, so fierce. The little girl hung on the old lady's arms and cried loudly. Granny was the local dialect for calling a grandmother. Old ladies in the countryside usually favored boys over girls. Of course, when their own daughter quarreled with other people, the old lady was not stupid. She would definitely help her own daughter. Seeing Yun Jian and Ce walking over and hearing her daughters crying, the old lady glanced at Ce and scolded her without asking for the reason. Chapter 18:10. This little girl's grandmother's surname was Lu. Old woman Lu didn't ask for the reason before she started scolding Yun Jian and Ce. This scolding made Yun Jian, who had originally wanted to appease the little girl, raise her eyebrows slightly. Ce acted as if she didn't hear the old woman's scolding. Seeing that Yun Jian and Ce actually ignore her scolding, old woman Lu originally only wanted to show her strength. After all, Yun Jian and Ce were from the city. Old woman Lu said that she wasn't afraid that Yun Jian and Ce were from the city, but since she said it, she was certain of one thing. Old woman Lu clearly distinguished between city dwellers and country dwellers. In old woman Lu's heart, it was her lifelong dream to be a city dweller. Even so, old woman Lu wasn't willing to show weakness in front of Yun Jian and Ce. Lu, old woman Lu, these two children just came to our country. Just now, they accidentally spoke a little too loudly and made your child cry. We're neighbors, so don't be so calculative. Give me some face, ha. Chen Xini's grandfather He Qing, who had heard the commotion from the kitchen, walked over to ease the awkward atmosphere and said a few words to old woman Lu. Seeing that He Qing was speaking up for Yun Jian and Ce, old woman Lu glanced at Yun Jian and Ce again and didn't pursue the matter. He Qing, I'll still give you some face, but these two people from the city are too rude. They made my granddaughter cry the moment they arrived. If this happens again, it won't be so simple.
As she spoke, old Madame Lu carried the little girl and turned to walk back into her house.
Yunjian and Ce didn't say anything. To be honest, it was indeed Ce who had made the little girl cry. Although old Madame Lu's tone was disgusting, she had to be reasonable. She wasn't afraid of being scolded, and it wasn't like she would lose a piece of meat. However, what made Yunjian's mouth twitch was that just now, Ce. Was he angry with a child because of her? Thinking of this, Yunjian's heart was filled with warmth.
She ran out crying on her own.
Ce saw that Yunjian was looking at him. He was afraid that Yunjian would be frightened by his fierce attitude and stay away from him, so he hurriedly explained. This was the first time that Yunjian had seen Ce like this.
She lowered her head and couldn't help but snicker.
How adorable. If Ce heard what Yunjian said in her heart, Ce would probably press her against the wall and kiss her for 3 days and 3 nights. When old woman Lu walked into the house, the surrounding neighbors, who had curiously watched as the little girl rushed into the house and called her grandmother out to support her, turned to look at Yunjian and Ce. He Qing, are these your relatives? These 2 children are so handsome. An old lady sitting at the side smiled as she looked at He Qing. No, no, no. These 2 children are my granddaughter's friends. They came to the countryside to play, He Qing explained with a smile. Actually, the people in the countryside were quite kind. The old lady looked at Yunjian and Ce, then secretly glanced in the direction that old woman Lu had left. She then said to Yunjian and Ce, don't worry about the 2 of you. You too, don't worry about that old hag. Old hag Lu is famous in our village for being a shrew. If anyone provokes her, it's like stepping on a dog's tail. Don't be afraid, Granny can protect you too here. The old lady really thought that Yunjian and Ce were being bullied, so she said this. The surrounding people thought that Yunjian and Ce were ordinary students. The only difference was that they were from the city. Thus, everyone started asking Yunjian and Ce questions. In the end, when they saw Ce holding Yunjian's little hand, the old lady sitting at the front leaned over to take a look and said, are the 2 of you a young couple? It's not strange for people in the city to be in a relationship at such a young age. When we were young, if a man and a woman were to be together, they would be spat at and scolded to death. The woman wouldn't even be able to get married. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.